Welcome back to another FPL deadline stream, this time out of Gameweek 22, and I haven't made any transfers just yet, but all my plans were discussed in the team selection video, and across the other piece of content like the transfer tips and the best wildcard squad, you have a great idea of what to do for this upcoming deadline, but also for the long term, which is very important. I think the midfield in particular will be very crucial in sort of laying the foundations for long-term success when it comes to Fantasy Premier League, and I've got a decent platform, but since wildcarding and having 5 free transfers around Gameweek 16, it just hasn't really gone according to plan. And now it's time to really fix up a little bit because the last couple of weeks have been quite disappointing with some stagnation and red arrows in the process. But I'll go through my team in more detail later on in this stream. The same goes for top 10 captains, clean sheet odds, and there are some changes actually in the top 10 captaincy list, mainly with the top spot, but that is definitely interchangeable this week, and there is no clear standout in my opinion, and there's going to be much more like predicted lineups that makes a return to the channel, and you will see how I've done so far this season in terms of correct predictions for every single team and what I currently think in terms of how each team will go for Gameweek 22 as well. But be sure to drop a like on the stream, subscribe, hit the hype button on YouTube, share this video around with those who love FPL and UCL fantasy. Keep your eyes peeled for the Matchday 7 content. The plan is to do a best wildcard and limitless squad and my team selection, and I'll do my very best to do a deadline stream next Tuesday, but I will talk more about that in the future. But let's get straight into your questions. Josh says, hi Dylan, my team is Thiago, Haaland, Bowen, Caicedo, Paqueta, Gordon, Bruno, Guimaraes, Cunha, Keane, Alderete, Chow, Senesi, Timber, Kelleher, Sanchez. Would you do Paqueta, Cunha, Keane for Palmer, Xhaka, or Rice and Esteve? Yeah, I think with Palmer at the moment, it's probably a no-go, and he is currently yellow flagged. It's not a long-term issue, it seems, but I am quite concerned about his minutes moving forwards, and he was someone I discussed as a wildcard pick, mainly in a couple of weeks' time, so you could definitely go early on him, but I am less keen on that pick right now, and I'll show you the updated wildcard squad later on as well, using FPL.team, but you've got a decent platform, you've got 2 rotating goalkeepers there in Kelleher and Sanchez, a solid defensive line, despite not having Gabriel there, and Senesi has been quite underwhelming recently, to be honest. Yeah, so selling Cunha and Paqueta is the right thing to do. I completely agree with that. And even with Keane suspended for 2 matches, I understand that transfer too. Instead of Xhaka, you could still consider Garner and Harry Wilson, of course, at 5.9 is looking terrific at the moment. I think his ceiling is far higher than Xhaka's, so that's something else I would also take into account. The forward line is solid. I think the only sort of suggestion I'd make there is maybe downgrading Bowen at some point. And what that allows you to do is maybe buy Palmer in the future whilst having Bruno Fernandes and other mid-priced midfielders like Semenyo. And that could take the place of Paqueta, Cunha and Caicedo, for example, just listing those 3 midfielders. There's also Morgan Rogers you can bring into your team. But yeah, as for your transfers overall, I do like them. But instead of buying Palmer, I think I'd go elsewhere right now. So definitely go for Rice over Xhaka, if that's the sort of debate you're having. As for Esteve, I get it. You're funding the other moves, but you've already got Alderete as a 4 million defender, and I'd rather have a bit more solidity at the back, a bit more depth. You don't necessarily need to have a fully stacked 50-man squad, but yeah, I would go for a different defender over Esteve, and I'd go for Rice over Xhaka. With Cole Palmer as well, that could still be a decent purchase in the long term, and if he doesn't play this week, then you're still in a good position. But I think the likes of Semenyo, Rice, Rogers, they'd all be more appealing right now, and probably Fernandes in a couple of weeks' time as well. I could buy Xhaka this week and get Rice the week after and transfer Gordon now. Also, am I missing any essentials in my team for this game and also long term? Well, pretty much those midfielders I just highlighted. So Rice is someone you want to bring in anyway. I think he's one of the best options that you don't have. Morgan Rogers, Bruno Fernandes around Gameweek 24. Those would be very appealing. Antoine Semenyo. Getting at least 2 of those 4 would be very important in my opinion. And Gabriel at the back, I think, would definitely stand out. Cylindra says, hey Dylan, with 2 free transfers and 0.3 in the bank, my team is currently Donnarumma, Gabriel, Timber, Van Heck, Wilson, Schade, Foden, Semenyo, Haaland, Thiago, Ekitike, with Joachim Andersen, Minter, Keane on the bench, currently 4 City players. So is it worth selling one of Semenyo or Foden to Rogers or Rice, or just roll my transfer to free? Yeah, I think it's worth selling Foden. Long term, I think Rice is the better option, but Rogers looks really appealing this week against Everton at home. So definitely all options that you've mentioned are viable, but I would sell Phil Foden to one of Rodgers or Rice, and my preference long-term is probably Declan Rice. Who to start between Van Heck and Anderson? Yeah, tough call this week. I'd lean towards Anderson at the moment. Yeah, I think Anderson is probably a little bit more likely to get a clean sheet. Good to see you, Easy. Yeah, it has been a couple of weeks, actually, because of the FA Cup, but yeah, we're back, and FPL is ready to go. With the signing of Semenyo and Mark Gay joining City, how does it change our mind about who owns them and other City players? Well, they're less appealing, particularly in the case of Antoine Semenyo. He's less talismanic, but he is showing great form across all competitions, scoring against Newcastle in the Carabao Cup, against Exeter in the FA Cup, and of course scoring for Bournemouth in his last ever appearance for them against Tottenham. But yeah, Mark Gay will definitely help City defensively, and he's going to start in most games virtually, but there's going to be some rotation there, especially this will be more so in the long distance, or long future, I should say, with with the likes of Gvardio and Ruben Dias, but that's going to be a couple of months from now at this point. But I think until then, Gay should start virtually most Premier League matches, but you never know with Pep Guardiola. Hi Dylan, my squad is Mukiele, Van der Ven, Gabriel, Chow, Palmer, Rodgers, Guimaraes, Foden, Rice, Haaland, Igor, Krupi. Who should I play? You've got plenty of options in your defensive line. You could easily start a back four, so I don't really blame you there. I would bench Krupi Jr. this week, and in terms of the other player to bench, quite a difficult one here. I think Mukiele looks decent against Crystal Palace, and Sunderland could keep a clean sheet. But yeah, very tough one. I think on paper, Krupi Jr. and Mukiele are the ones to bench, but there is a case of starting Mukiele over Van der Ven. That would be my personal take on it. Should I sell Palmer to Bruno Fernandes and Foden to either Enzo, Semenyo, Cherki? Yeah, I think Foden to one of Semenyo or Enzo looks really appealing. I would be definitely looking at that move, especially if you are going to get, extra funds to invest in another area, maybe buy Gabriel at the back. And Palmer to Bruno Fernandes, I'd probably go for it as well, mainly because of Palmer's injury situation. Good to see you, Baraf. Start any one of Rodon, Cunha, Tarkovsky, Anderson. I don't mind a 4-pointer. Well, 4 points is better than 2 or less, of course. But yeah, I think from these players, Cunha has the highest ceiling, but I'm not really backing any of them to return per se. It's probably going to be Cunha. Why would Gallagher reject Villa for Spurs? Well, I'm sure there are many reasons for it, but yeah, Gallagher's back in the Premier League, and very interesting to see him. I actually think he's going to start for Tottenham Hotspur this week, and I'm going to go through my predicted lineups very soon. But yeah, Aston Villa right now look more attractive in terms of a proposition. But of course, Spurs do have some advantages. We can go into that later on maybe. City signed Gay and Semenyo already looking good. Yes, they are spending a lot of money, just like they did in January last year and also in the summer. And they're reacting well to the injuries that they've got. And also probably a deficiency in terms of not having that goal-scoring winger, but now they've got that in Antoine Semenyo, so they're making some very good signings on paper. Hello, Dylan. I'm thinking of selling Cunha to Bruno Fernandes and Foden to Semenyo. Any thoughts? Yeah, I'm on board with that. And once again, Foden to Semenyo, that also plays into the Bruno Fernandes transfer, so I think that looks very enticing. It might seem sideways because they both play for the same team on those two occasions, but I think I'd go for it. Sam says Sanchez, Dubravka, Klein, Chow, Hincapié, Lacroix, Gabriel, Rodgers, Wilson, Saka, Bruno, Guimaraes, Foden, Thiago, Krupi, Haaland. Who should I start? Maybe do Hincapié to Timber or Foden to Semenyo. Is that smart? Out of those two transfers, Hincapié to Timber looks better, but I'm pretty sure we discussed this in the comment section recently, and yeah, there are other ideas, of course, to bear in mind, but I think from what you're proposing here, I would rather do Hincapié to Timber. There's no guarantee the Ecuadorian will be available in Gameweek 22. Also thinking about Vert short term. Against Burnley at home, fine, but Liverpool's fixtures afterwards look quite tough. I'd rather go for Rodgers, Declan Rice, Bruno Guimaraes, you already have, Antoine Semenyo, Yeah, there are plenty of options in the midfield I'd prioritize instead. Hi, Dylan. Would you start Richards or Tarkowski? Yeah, that's a tough one. Yeah, I think a lot of these defender questions are quite interesting this week because I'm not really that convinced about any of them. Tarkowski can get DEFCON, but I think Villa will score a couple of goals, so probably Richards here. Would you have Palm on the wild card? That's something I talked about a couple of days ago, but I am less keen on that now. He didn't play against Arsenal, and he's still yellow flagged for the Brentford game. There's also the Champions League coming up, so yeah, I'll talk about that later on. So yeah, there was a wildcard squad I made a few days ago. You can also check that out. There aren't many changes, but I talk about a few modifications, and Palmer out is definitely one of them, so keep your eyes peeled for that. Gabriel, Timber, Chow, Tarkowski, O'Reilly, Rice, Foden, Semenyo, Enzo, Wilson, Bowen, Hallen, Ekatike, bench free. Yeah, I'd bench Tarkowski. I think in this case, I would bench Nico O'Reilly. And the third option is going to be the toughest. One of those midfielders or forwards. Not looking great. Yeah, I think it's between Jarrod Bowen and I'm going to say Phil Foden, which might end up aging horribly, but yeah, I'd be tempted to bench maybe one of Foden or Enzo. Yeah, interesting one, that one. Because Bowen as well, fairly consistent, but his ceiling isn't particularly high. In terms of Hincapié, he's still a doubt for the next game. I think Ben White will start right back and it'll be Timber on the left. There's also the option of Lewis Skelly, but with Hincapié, it's not a long-term issue. I think he should be back fairly soon, but there's no need to rush him. I don't think he'll start. I have 1.8 in the bank, says Sam. Yeah, still probably going to be the same thing. Hincapié to Timber. I don't mind doubling up on the Arsenal defence whatsoever, and you can do that by making that transfer. Play Alderete or Van Heck? Alderete. Yeah, Saka to Rice is something we also talked about, I believe, Sam. And yeah, I think Rice would be a very solid choice. I think long-term he offers better value than Saka, and both of them could be rotated. At least one of them will against Wolves. And a lot depends on their lineup against Forest and also against Inter Milan. That will shape how Arteta will approach the Wolves game. But yeah, that'll be very interesting in the build-up to that. Saka's ceiling will be high on paper, but Declan Rice is going to be more consistent. Sell Cunha or Dalot or Roll? Depends on several factors here. Like, which player could you afford to replace these options, and yeah, what sort of formation you're prioritizing or rolling with in most weeks. But probably Cunha out is the priority for me. But I don't know your exact situation. Good morning there. Good to see you. The same goes to Genius Gamer. And yes, Sean, we are here indeed. Hey, Dylan, would you start Anderson, Tarkowski, or Senesi? We're likely to start two, as I have Gay as well. Okay, so this is Joachim Anderson, not Elliot Anderson, just to be clear there. I would start Joachim Anderson and probably Senesi and bench Tarkowski here. Bench Szoboszlai, Foden, Semenyo, Rodgers, or Gravenberch. This might age horribly, but I'm going to say Foden. We'll see how that goes. Hi, Dylan. Who should I bench? Foden, Rodgers, Rice, Bruno Guimaraes, Gordon, Ekatike, Hallen, Calvert-Lewin. Yeah, not an easy benching dilemma here. I think a lot of people are in a similar situation. My first instinct is actually going to be Foden again. It's between him and Calvert-Lewin. Yeah, Baraf, as discussed in my team selection, Rice and Rodgers are at the top of the agenda, and you'll see some polls which are going to showcase my transfer plans, the final version, and a lot comes down to who I sell. Is it going to be Cunha or Phil Foden? Do I even sell both of them? Those are also very likely. By the way, let me get the countdown timer up, because we still have time, of course, until the Game Week 22 deadline. So yeah, we do have 1 hour, 38 minutes, and keep your eyes peeled for that. And I think there were some price changes yesterday, like Nico O'Reilly. He went down, actually, which was quite surprising. I don't think the algorithms picked up on that, so I'll go through that very soon. Currently have quadruple City. Which one would you sell for Rice, if any? So I'm assuming that's Foden, Haaland, Semenyo. Wow, quadruple City attack. Do you have Cherky as well? Probably Foden. is the one to sell here. If you had Watkins, would you not be tempted to captain him? He's in my top 10 list, so he would be a consideration, but yeah, he has a high 6G in the last 6 matches playing at home. He has been in great form since Game Week 10, essentially. He's showing real consistency, but yeah, I'd be tempted to captain him, but I'm not sure if I'd actually pull through with it. In my case, I was thinking of Ekitike. He doesn't have the same underlying numbers as Watkins, but of course he had that purple patch fairly recently. But the simple answer to your question would be yes, I'd be tempted, but you're going to see my list very soon, and Watkins is in the top 10, but maybe not as high as you would think. Is Canva an option for Palace, cheap with Gagon or Lerma? Not necessarily for me. And Crystal Palace have been pretty dreadful for the last couple of months. I think Mark Gay leaving is only going to hinder them even further, of course, and they're losing a real leader at the back. In terms of Lerma, who you mentioned, he is a midfielder by trade. I would not be investing in him at 4.9 million. I think Ghana would be much better at 5.2, or soon to be at that price point. And Harry Wilson is arguably the best budget midfielder overall at 5.9. So, yeah, not Lerma for me. Definitely not. Canva would be more of a consideration, but I don't think Palace are worth covering defensively. That's one of my mistakes on the wildcard, bringing in Nathaniel Klein as well. Okay, so let's go through some other questions here. Start to Enzo Lefebvre, Cunha, Thiago. Yeah, I would go for Thiago and probably Enzo. Bonjour, Cunha or Ghana to start, or maybe sell Cunha for Enzo and bench Ghana. I'd still start Cunha this week over Ghana, and yeah, selling Cunha for Enzo looks promising as well. I think long-term that is a good transfer, and I don't mind making it this week. Morning, Dylan. Keep up your good work. Thank you, Matthias. Donnarumma, Timber, Mukiele, Virgil, Gabriel, Gordon, Gravenberch, Voltemada, Hallen, Ekitike, Dubravka, Anderson, Enzo, Anderson on the bench. You got Enzo on the bench. Okay. I can understand why. And by the way, with Voltemada, that is a tricky one, but I think he will start. Yeah, so long-term, I would sell Donnarumma. I don't think he offers enough value. And if you wanted a premium goalkeeper, I think Raya or Pickford would be the best ones. I think defensively, you're quite sound. It's not really a priority area for you. So I'd be looking at that midfield and forward line. For me, Igor Thiago is the second best forward in the game, but his upcoming fixtures are quite poor. He's facing Arsenal in the next 5. He's also got 3 tough away games against Aston Villa, Chelsea and Newcastle. So in terms of timing, you might want to hold off on Igor Thiago per se. I think Ekitike is arguably a sell after Game Week 22, and Voltemada would be a sell probably in the same time frame. Keep him for the Wolves game and then get rid of him. So I think that forward line would need some work, and you could even downgrade one of them to get more funds to invest in the midfield, which could be very important, and that's where Rodgers, Rice, and a few other key players would come into play. Bruno Fernandes, Antoine Semenyo, and they could really bolster that position. So, yeah, I think the midfield would need quite a bit of work, actually, because you've also got Elliot Anderson. So that's something to really consider in the long term. I don't know what you have in terms of funds right now or free transfers, but I wouldn't even mind making a midfielder transfer this week. But here, I think you say you've got Bruno Guimaraes. So you've got Bruno Guimaraes, Gravenberch, Gordon, and then, yeah. I would start Enzo over Gravenberch for what it's worth, although it's quite difficult to predict when the Dutchman will actually score or assist, but he has been a quality FPL asset this season. But yeah, definitely bolster that midfield in the long term. I don't think Hincapié will play, as mentioned earlier. Wilson first on the bench, free transfers, roll and play Cunha and Foden, or sell one or both to Enzo and Bruno. I'd be tempted to sell both in this case. Once again, it comes down to the long term, and I think they're better options than Cunha and Foden. I think Gakpo will start. He's not going to get 90 minutes week in, week out, though, and it hasn't been that long that he came from an injury. So, yeah, I think in terms of Gakpo, not too infused about that pick. For the Burnley game, it's fine, but he's arguably a sell afterwards. Hey, Dylan, what do you think of Tell as a 2-week punt ahead of Wildcard 24? I'm not completely on board, but I like it when people have different ideas, and if you are bullish about it, you got to back your gut on that one. But yeah, Tell should start for Tottenham Hotspur. Of course, Kudus is going to be out for a couple of months as well, which does help him. And yeah, I think Tell would be an interesting option. It's just not something I would really recommend personally. He did score against Bournemouth, of course, in the last Premier League game, but he has been very inconsistent for his entire Tottenham career. So probably a no from me. With Rosenau likely having his goalkeeper playing very high on the pitch, how long is Sanchez likely keeping his position in the starting 11? I still think he'll be the main choice. I know he made a mistake against Arsenal for one of the goals, but he made a great save as well. And that could also give Chelsea a lifeline in the tie. But yeah, I'm not too concerned about that right now. Chelsea are trying to build up in a different way. I think they're really struggling with that at the moment. And defensively, they look all over the place. But the positive for the Blues is that offensively they are looking quite promising with 7 goals in the last 2 games. But yeah, I'm not too concerned about Robert Sanchez. Playing Mane from Wolves, benching Chow. I'd rather start Chow, but I don't really blame you for that because Wolves have shown decent form recently and they could score against Newcastle. Start Lacroix, Mukiele, and Mateta Cunha. Okay, I would go for Mateta. This is the problem, right? If you do go for the Mateta pick, you'd be more inclined to start the Palace defender in Lacroix. But I think that's probably what I'd end up doing. Start Mateta, and you can go all in on Palace that way. But, of course, they have been in poor form across all competitions. Yeah, Foden's minutes are interesting. I still think he'll start, but I'm not as convinced about him as I was over a month ago. Hey, Dylan, will Gay play at all this weekend, either for Palace or City? No, he definitely won't play for Palace. That was confirmed by Glasner, and he won't start for City. And that's interesting as well because I think it's either Ake or Alien who will start for Man City. But yeah, not going to be Mark Gay. Hi, Dylan. Cunha and Saka out for Rice and Bruno Fernandes, 2 free transfers. I like it. I'd go ahead. I'm seeing a lot of these sort of sideways transfers per se. One midfielder from Arsenal to another. The same goes for United and City, but that looks very promising. So if Carrick as the new manager instead of Ollie, how does it change things with plans for us to own and buy United players? It's difficult to say. With Ollie, we have more of a sample size. Michael Carrick has only managed a couple of Premier League matches for Man United, and that was a couple of years ago. After Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was sacked, by the way. But yeah, all we really know for Carrick is his time at Middlesbrough. And I still think Bruno Fernandes will be appealing. But yeah, of course, with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, we saw him at his absolute best in terms of productivity in a United shirt. So yeah, I think it's probably just best to analyze when we see at least one match and then we can make some conclusions from that. But yeah, at this moment in time, I don't think there's a massive difference between Michael Carrick and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and I believe a lot of Man United fans feel the same way. Zenzone says, should I use bench boost with Dubravka, Rodgers, Reinildo, and Alderete? So right now you've got a benching dilemma. Looking to fit Rodgers in this team. Who should I bench? Foden, Rice, Bruno Guimaraes, Wilson, Thiago, Ekitike, Haaland. I would consider benching Foden, but that's just a gut feeling of mine. Is it worth bench boosting? Yeah, that's a possibility. But I'll be honest. The Dubravka away to Liverpool. Double Sunderland defence looks okay. And of course, Rodgers is very promising. It is a decent bench boost. I wouldn't mind using it this week, but you know what? In your situation, I'd probably do it. Even if he had Foden on the bench, it doesn't really matter. But apart from Dubravka, that looks like a solid 50-man squad for this week. Bruno Fernandes or Semenyo? I slightly lean towards Fernandes. You're going to see that in my top 10 list. They're literally right next to each other. Captain Haaland, Rodgers, Watkins, or Gabriel. From those, it's going to be Haaland, but all of them feature in my top 10 list as well. Hi, Dylan. Is it worth starting Janelt? And when is it best to take a -4? I'm not a massive fan of Janelt. I think for Brentford, apart from the obvious Igor Thiago, you're probably looking at Sharda. and he is quite inconsistent. But yeah, is it worth taking a -4? When is it best? It's very circumstantial and team dependent, but if you're making a long-term move and bringing in a player of the caliber of Bruno Fernandes, Declan Rice, Morgan Rogers, I think that could certainly work, especially if they have a promising fixture this week, which I think Rogers does have to his advantage. So yeah, it just really depends on the situation as well, but I try to avoid it when possible, but sometimes hits can be to the benefit of your FPL squad. Hey, good morning. Need your advice. Bench 1, Thiago, Bowen, or Wilson? Tough one, but probably Bowen. Should I start Van Hecke or Tarkowski? Van Hecke. Bruno or Rice? Is this Bruno Guimaraes or Bruno Fernandes? But either way, I think Rice is going to be the answer right now. I only have Gabriel from Arsenal. Do Cunha to Rice? Yes for me. Tavernier is not really a long-term pick in my opinion, and at 5.9 million and below, I'd be looking at Wilson and Garner over Tavernier, but he'd be up there in terms of budget midfielders, that's for sure. Particularly if you're kind of struggling or you're limited to 5.5 and below, which Tavernier currently costs. Bench O'Reilly or Tarkowski? I'd bench Tarkowski. Play Bowen or sell for Thiago? I'd play Bowen. With Thiago, once again, he is fixture-proof arguably, but over the next 5, he faces Newcastle, Chelsea and Aston Villa away, as well as Arsenal at home. Not great fixtures. So for those that don't have Thiago, I wouldn't be in a rush to buy him now. Van de Ven or Lacroix? This week it'd be Van de Ven. Start 1, Palmer, Cunha, or NOR? Is that Nico O'Reilly? I'd start Palmer just in case, but I don't really think he's going to start, to be fair. And I think Cunha over O'Reilly in the pecking order. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is go for some different screens. Be sure to drop a like, subscribe. The aim is to get this to over 100 likes overall on YouTube and to close in on a new goal, which we could even reach today. Let's see if we can make a push towards that. 38,000 subscribers. So yeah, it's all thanks to your support. And I'll have a quick look, but we are around 60, 70 away. So let's be sure to reach that goal over the coming days, particularly with the Matchday 7 content lined up for you in UCL Fantasy. But let's go to some different screens here. That includes the FDR until Gameweek 27. Chelsea are top with their new manager, Liam Rosenau. Crystal Palace, Sunderland, West Ham and Tottenham complete the top 5. Even Aston Villa and Liverpool aren't too far away. But if we look at the bottom, Brentford are right down there with some difficult fixtures. I think Forest at home would look quite appealing, but the rest are difficult on paper. Leeds, Wolves, Newcastle and Fulham are in the bottom 5. The likes of Man United and Arsenal are pretty much mid-table. The same goes for Man City in 10th spot. With predicted points in the same time frame, Haaland is going to be number 1. Fernandes, Gabriel, Rice and Foden are still in the top 5, with Ekitike, Mbumo, Mateta, Thiago and Cole Palmer in the top 10 overall. With predicted points, Antoine Semenyo, Thiago, Fernandes, Bruno Guimaraes, Rufs, Rice and Wirtz could all rise tonight. As for price falls, we have quite a lot on the agenda. That includes Bowen, Mount, Foden, Andre, Voltemada, Keane and a few other options here like Saka and Gusto. Mateta's another one who has been quite disappointing for several weeks. And Hincapié is another potential price faller. We'll see how that goes very soon. I put some polls out on my channel, and these are the top 3 midfielders for me to buy in Gameweek 22. Declan Rice does lead this poll with 57% of the vote. Rogers is 2nd, and Antoine Semenyo is 3rd. In terms of who to sell between Cunha and Foden, well, we have a clear winner here, with 84% of you voting for Matheus Cunha to sell over Phil Foden, which I completely understand, to be fair. It's probably inevitable that one of them will return this week. So it's worth bearing this in mind. There is a update for blanks and doubles. So Man City did win against Newcastle in the Carabao Cup semi-final at St James's Park. If they make it to the final, Man City and Palace will blank in Gameweek 31. If Man City or Burnley make it to the FA Cup semi-finals, they will blank in Gameweek 34. And the potential double gameweeks would be in 33 and 36 for Man City. And of course, we got the update following Arsenal's 3-2 win against Chelsea in the Carabao Cup as well. So if both teams reach the final, Arsenal and Man City, the teams that will blank in Gameweek 31 include Arsenal, Wolves, Man City and Crystal Palace. And we could get a likely double Gameweek 26 with Arsenal facing Brentford away and Wolves away and Wolves would face Nottingham Forest away and Arsenal at home. So yeah, these updates, as you can see, are taken from the website All About FPL, but it's worth bearing that in mind for future planning. And for those of you who are saving transfers, it could be very useful for a potential double in Gameweek 26. So let's now go to a stats comparison of Rice and Rodgers, who are the most likely midfielders to come in for me. So Rice only has 2 goals this season, but in terms of goal contributions, they're identical. Rodgers does lead in that regard with 10 for the season, 7 goals and 3 assists. In terms of shot volume, it's also quite similar, but Rodgers does lead in terms of overall shots, shots on target, and also inside the box. The XG is quite minimal for both at around 2, but Rodgers is slightly ahead. And when it comes to XA, that's where Rice takes the lead. And the same goes for big chances, almost double the amount of Morgan Rodgers. Big chance created is also very promising for both of them. 8 for Rice and 7 for Morgan Rodgers. And key passes, Declan Rice leads in that metric as well. So when it really comes down to it, Rodgers has better shot volume and he's got more goal potential. But when it comes to creativity and also some key underlying stats like big chances and big chance created, I think Declan Rice is going to be the more consistent option. He's also able to get DEFCON. Rodgers won't be able to do that. If he does it this season, I'd be surprised. But yeah, Rice can do it on several occasions as well. Clean sheet points is not going to be a massive factor, but Rice would have the advantage in that regard too. And I think both of them are great choices. For this week specifically, I think Rodgers looks more appealing against Everton at home. But when it comes down to the long term, Declan Rice is probably the safer pick. I'm also going to go to FPL.team to show you the updated wildcard squad. So I have taken out Cole Palmer here, and I've got 0.7 million in the bank. This is a sort of rough team that I would build towards. Rufs in goal and Dubravka as the backup. Van der Ven, Timber and Gabriel in the starting 11. There is certainly a case to start one of Chow or Alderete. And because I've got enough money in the bank, you could even upgrade Alderete to Mukiele here. But it's not absolutely essential. In the midfield is Semenyo, Fernandez, Rodgers, Rice and Wilson, with Haaland and Thiago up front. And on the bench there's Calvert-Lewin, Chow and Mukiele. So that's quite a strong 15-man squad. And another option instead of Semenyo would actually be Enzo Fernandez. And that gives you even more money in the bank, in my case 1.5 million, which you could use to bolster other areas. As for FPL Challenge, I'll go back to this after the deadline, but I've got Rufs in goal, Gabriel, Rodgers, Fernandez, Ekitike captain in this game, and Erling Haaland as my final player. And this week it is called the Playmaker, so you get +1 point for every chance created, so that looks very solid indeed. And you could even go for 3 midfielders in the grand scheme of things and remove one of these strikers. So, to be honest with you, I don't see myself changing much unless there's a surprise benching from these players that you see on screen. But yeah, that's something else that I will bear in mind too. I'm also going to show you my team selection graphics. So, of course, I did talk about this in the video. There are some updated prices and stuff. I think O'Reilly is someone to look out for, by the way. He did go down overnight, which was quite unexpected. But this is how I did in Gameweek 21. Not particularly great, to be quite honest with you. And quite a lot of disappointments across the board. Wilson was the standout performer in the midfield. Thiago and Haaland did the business up front. But yeah, defensively, Gabriel with a clean sheet. That's pretty much it. Everyone else blanked. And Ekitike was yellow flagged until recently. Nathaniel Klein is now orange flagged, but I don't think he'll start. And you're going to see my predicted lineups very soon. But Cunha to Rodgers is definitely on the agenda. The same goes for Foden to Declan Rice. I might even make both transfers now, and there will be a poll very soon. Antoine Semenyo is also on the agenda, but I think it's more likely I buy Rice or Rodgers instead. So, the provisional team selection would be Robert Sanchez in goal. And I did talk about buying Rodgers in my team selection, and that's really to target the Everton fixture in Gameweek 22. But I think Declan Rice could be the sort of more reliable option in the long run. And there is a change to the captaincy. I think Erling Haaland will take it in the end with Ekitike as the vice. But Pep Guardiola has talked about Haaland's fitness. He seems to be fatigued and his recent form has been questionable at best. There have also been some changes to the expected points, which you can now see. But a lot of it was covered, of course, in my team selection podcast a couple of days ago. So next up will be the scoreline predictions. So I've gone for Manchester United 1, Man City 2 in the early kickoff. Chelsea 1, Brentford 1. Leeds 2, Fulham 2. Liverpool 2, Burnley 0. Tottenham 2, West Ham 1. Sunderland 1, Crystal Palace 0. Nottingham Forest 0, Arsenal 1. Wolves 1, Newcastle 1. Aston Villa 3, Everton 1. And Brighton 2, Bournemouth 2. Next up will be the clean sheet odds, which I highlighted in my Best Wildcard Squad podcast. Well, before I get to that, by the way, bit of a rookie error, it's the team weakness, and I'm focusing on Everton this week. And Rodgers, you can play in a central area or on the left. I think he could really thrive with Everton's problems at the moment because Keane is going to be unavailable for the next 2 matches. There's no Branthwaite, and also Patterson could be the starter at right back, so I think Aston Villa could take advantage. With the clean sheet odds, Liverpool are top. Arsenal, Aston Villa, Tottenham, Chelsea and Newcastle are in the top 6. And Burnley are bottom. So not many changes to the clean sheet odds. And they've all been reflected here. At one point, Chelsea were actually 4th. And they had a 40% chance of keeping a clean sheet against Brentford. But they have changed quite drastically, of course. And that was reflected in the wildcard video too. So next up is going to be the top 10 captains. And as you can see, Bruno Guimaraes does make it into the top 10. That could also be Anthony Gordon. I think Florian Wirtz is also a shout against Burnley at home. Semenyo, Fernandes, Watkins and Gabriel just missed out on the top 5, which comprises of Rodgers, Cole Palmer, who is now yellow flagged, of course, Saka, Ekitike, and Erling Haaland, who is number 1 again, but only just. I think it's very close between him and Hugo Ekitike this week. So let's now go to predicted lineups, and that will be very interesting indeed. And I'll start off with Arsenal. I think Raya, White, Saliba, Gabriel and Timber will be the backline, with Zubimendi, Odegaard, Rice, Saka, Gyökeres, and it's a very close call between Trossard and Martinelli, but I think with that hat-trick in the FA Cup against Portsmouth, I think Martinelli could start against Nottingham Forest away. With Aston Villa, the main dilemma will be Emi Martinez or Marco Bizot. That's going to be an interesting one. I am going for Emi Martinez, who should undergo a late fitness test. And if he is available, he is going to start, of course. Cash, Konsa, Lindelof and Maatsen is my predicted defensive line. But there's also the possibility of Luka Dean starting in that position. Bogard and Tielemans in the midfield. McGinn, Rodgers, Buendia and Ollie Watkins up front. Moving on to Bournemouth, they have lost Antoine Semenyo now, and they've got plenty of injuries and doubts, like Brooks, for example, but Petrovic, Jimenez, Hill, Senesi and Troffert, Scott, Cook, Adley, Krupi Jr., Tavernier and Evanussen is the likely starting 11. And with Brentford, I've gone for Kelleher, Coyote, Ajer, Collins and Henry, Yano, Yarmouk, Dango Ouattara, Jensen, Schade and Thiago. But we could even see Brentford play a back 5, and if that's the case, Vandenberg will start over Dango or Ouattara. Moving on to Brighton, Verbruggen, Veltman, Van Heck, Dunk, Kadioglu, Ayari, Pascal Gross, Gruder, Jorginho Rota, Mitoma and Danny Welbeck. That is my predicted 11. And with Burnley, Dubravka, Lauren, Ekdal and Estev, I think Humphreys could also start, and that would be in place of probably Ekdal in this case, but I've gone for this back 3, with Walker and Perez as the wing-backs, Ogochukwu and Florentino Luis in central midfield, Edwards, Broja and Jadon Anthony up front. With Chelsea, Robert Sanchez, Gusto, Fofana, Chalobah, Cucurella, Enzo Fernandez, Caicedo, Neto, Palmer, Garnacho and Joao Pedro, but there are many question marks about this team. Reece James could get some minutes and maybe a start against Brentford. The lap up front, but I'm going for this 11. Of course, Palmer is yellow flag, by the way, so that could also be changed, and I'll show you my final version fairly soon. With Crystal Palace, it has been confirmed that Mark Gay will not feature against Sunderland this weekend, and he is on the verge of joining Manchester City. So Dean Henderson, Richards, Lacroix and Canva is my predicted backline, with Wharton, Hughes, Devaney, Mitchell, Johnson, Yeremy Pino and Jean-Philippe Mateta. Everton could go for Pickford, Patterson, Tarkowski, O'Brien, Mikalenko, Roll, Garner, Dibbling. Oh yeah, I need to change the name there for McNeil, but that is McNeil in central attacking midfield. Grealish and Barry. With Fulham, Leno, Castagna, Anderson, Cuenca, Robinson, Sandenberg and Lukic, Wilson, Smith-Rowe, Kevin and Raul Jimenez. That is going to be my predicted 11. Leeds will go for a back 5 once more with Perry, Justin, Rodon, Bjol, Strauk, Goodmanson, Aronson, Ampadu, Stack, Calvert-Lewin and Okafor. My main concern will be right wing back essentially, and Bogle could start once again. With the Premier League champions Liverpool, Alisson, Frimpong, Konate, Van Dijk, Kerkez, Gravenberch, McAllister, Szoboszlai, Wirtz, Gakpo and Ekitike is my predicted 11 for them there. And with Man City, my main concern is in central defence, but Ake definitely has a shout of starting there. And whilst O'Reilly played in a midfield role against Newcastle, I think Rodri will come in against Man United in the early kickoff. With Donnarumma in goal, Matheus Nunes, Kusanov, Alien and O'Reilly. And just ahead of Rodri, it will be Bernardo Silva, Cherki, Foden, Semenyo and Erling Haaland, in my opinion. On the other side of Manchester, there is United with Lamens, Dalot, Maguire, Martinez, Shaw, Casemiro, Ugarte, Mbumo, Bruno Fernandes, Cunha, and Benjamin Sesko. Newcastle will likely go for Pope, Miley, Botman, Chow, Hall, Tonali, Bruno Guimaraes, Joelinton, Barnes, Voltemada, and Anthony Gordon. Nottingham Forest against Arsenal, that'll be an interesting test there. I think they'll go for Sells, Aina, Milenkovic, Murillo, Williams, Sangare, who is back from AFCON. Of course, you saw Mbumo as well for United there too. Anderson, Hutchinson, Gibbs-White, Hudson-Odoi, and Igor Jesus. We're now approaching the last couple of teams, and Sunderland have played a back four recently, but they can also shift to this hybrid back five with Rufs, Mukiele, Kertrauda, Ballard, Alderete, and Reinildo Mandava, another player who is returning from the African Cup of Nations. Mayenda, Lefay, Xhaka, Adingra and Brobby would complete the rest of the Black Cats 11. And with Tottenham Hotspur, Vicario, Borro, Romero, Van der Ven, Spence, although this could be a doggy, I do admit that. I think Paulinho will start alongside new signing Gallagher, Odeber, Xavi Simons, Tell and Colomwani up front. And with West Ham, Areola, Wan-Bissaka, Kilman, Todibo, Scarles, Magassa, Potts, Fernandez, Somerville, Bowen and also Castellanos. I think he might have been added to FPL now. When I made these graphics, he wasn't added to the game. So I'm going to have a quick look. And yeah, if he has been added, then I will be reflecting his price. But yeah, right now I don't actually see him. So I'm going to have a quick look here and see if I can find him. Oh yeah, he's called Totti in this game. Yeah, he's 5.5 million. So that will be updated very soon when I go through these lineups. Well, I'll play them in the background, but not really highlight them in detail like I just did. So thanks everyone for tuning in for the last couple of hours. Be sure to like, subscribe, all that good stuff. It's really much appreciated. And yeah, let's keep on going. Let's get the stream up to 100 likes and closing on new goals like 38k on YouTube. So big up to the community as always. And let's now go back to my FPL squad. Hey Dylan, aren't Foden's minutes in danger of Semenyo in his peak form? Well, they can coexist together, and Semenyo can play on both flanks. Foden can also operate in central areas. So, look, that signing will mean more rotation for Cherki, Rangers, possibly Foden as well, but I don't think it has a direct impact on Foden's minutes. In fact, his form is going to be more concerning for Phil Foden. Yeah, Gay's not going to play this weekend. I think he'll be a starter in Game Week 23, though. As for Nico O'Reilly, I still think he's going to start. But one thing City could do is play Ake at left back and have O'Reilly on the bench. I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case, to be fair. But in my 11 that I just showed you, I've got him in that starting lineup. Captain Haaland, Rodgers, Watkins, Gabriel. Yes, covered earlier. Haaland is my favourite there. Let's go through the super chats. There are a few in the building. So thanks to Anish, who says, hey Dylan, on wildcard, Rufs, Gabriel, Saliba, Frimpong, Bruno Guimaraes, Bruno Fernandes, Rice, Rodgers, Enzo, Thiago, Haaland, with Kelleher, Krupi, Mukiele and Nunes on the bench. I wouldn't go for Saliba. Personally, I think if you want to double up on Arsenal defensively, go for Timber. I know he's a bit more expensive, but I think he'll offer more attacking threat, possibly Defcon as well, and bonus points. So I think it's definitely worth going for Timber over Saliba. Yeah, Frimpong for me is not really someone I'd consider. I know against Burnley he has a high ceiling and he's shown decent form recently, but the minutes are still a bit all over the place. And I think there are better options long-term than Frimpong. So I would change those two. I think with the rest, I'm fairly happy with it, particularly the midfield. That looks very strong. But I think when it comes down to it, the three defenders, Mateus Nunes, Frimpong and Saliba, I would change. So I'd go to Timber, possibly Chow, looking long-term, and even Chalobah could look quite decent with Chelsea's fixtures in mind. So those are the sorts of players I'd recommend to you, Anish. Paredes says, Gameweek 22 leaning to roll. Cunha expected minutes. Yeah, I think he'll start and get probably 70 to 80, depending on game state. We'll use the information and free transfers next game week. Team, Kelleher, Timber, Chow, Gabriel, Mukiele, Vert, Saka, Cunha, Foden, Haaland captain, Thiago, Dubravka, Alderete, Marley, Obi. That's fair enough, and sometimes waiting a little bit more, having more information, and then you can make a more informed decision. That's the way to go, but yeah, I don't know. I can only speak from recent experiences, but having 5 free transfers in my case has actually been to my detriment because I got a bit too trigger happy. But I think with free transfers, that's good, and I get why you want to roll. You don't need to make a move, but I'm still quite tempted to sell Cunha and Foden. I might do both this week. It could be spread out in 22 and 23. In your case, you're keeping both of them, and it's definitely plausible for them to return in the Manchester derby, but which one? That's going to be a different story. So it could lead to frustrations if you pick the wrong one to sell, per se. And timing is so important in Fantasy Premier League as well. But yeah, I think with Cunha's expected minutes, it's still not going to be a massive concern for me, but his underlying stats, except for the shot volume, isn't particularly great, and I don't trust Cunha in terms of his consistency. Sam says, hi Dylan, who should I start? So yeah, start Sanchez, Gabriel, Chow, and Lacroix. In the midfield and attack, I'd bench Krippy Jr. Zulu says, who to keep, Foden or Cherky? I'd rather keep Cherky right now. Yeah, well, the thing is with Voltemada, there's still the possibility of Vissa starting instead. But yeah, Voltemada is an option. I just don't think his ceiling is particularly high. Gabriel captain. He is in my top 10 list, which you saw a couple of minutes ago. He's the best defender to captain. I think that goes without saying. And he's 6th in my overall list. Wilson or Voltemada? Probably Voltemada with the assumption that he starts. But that is going to be a different question in of itself. Welcome, Eddie. I'm on wildcard. Go Thiago or Watkins? Watkins has the better fixture this week, and I think he'll outperform Thiago in 22. But looking long-term, beyond the next 5, where Thiago has difficult fixtures on paper, I still think Thiago is the answer. But I think because you're wildcarding now, what I'd probably do is go for Watkins first, and then sell him to Thiago in a couple of weeks' time. That'd be my advice. Start Cherky or Wilson? Wilson. Cherky or Thiago? Thiago. Julian says, I'm quite happy with my team other than I had Gay in the starting 11. I have Goodmanson and Dallo on the bench, thinking of selling the latter for Mukiele and starting him. Yeah, if you have enough money, I would sell Goodmanson instead, but ultimately both Dallo and Goodmanson are sellable anyway. But I get what you're saying there, and if you decide to sell Dallo instead, it's fine. I just think long-term having 2 Formula defenders isn't in your best interest. Will Palace defend or be worse defensively with the departure of Gay? Well, I think so, and they've already been quite vulnerable with Mark Gay. So losing that leadership at the back, one of the best central defenders in the league as well, it's going to be a massive blow. But yeah, there are some tough times for Palace in store for them, and obviously the other day it was quite well, yesterday in fact, it was just a big shock. You also got the Oliver Glasner news confirming that he's going to leave at the end of the season, so it's going to be a period of change for Crystal Palace. No, as I covered before, Richard, Gay's not going to play for Palace, and he's not going to play for City either. And that was confirmed by Glasner, that he's not going to play for Palace against Sunderland, and I just don't see him. Yeah, he's not going to play for City. So that'll be more of a Gameweek 23 question. Hi, Dylan. Cunha and Saka out for Rice and Fernandez. Yeah, looks good to me. Relax, side gamer. I'm not sure, by the way. Yeah, maybe my chat bugged out, but I did go through these earlier. Jamie says, hello Dylan, should I start Rice or Thiago? I've already got Saka starting. It's going to be Thiago for me, and Brentford have a good record at Stamford Bridge, so I would probably bank on that a little bit more. Good morning Dylan, thinking of selling Cunha for Enzo. Looks good to me, and Enzo's been talked about quite a lot in my recent wildcard and Transfits videos, so that would be my advice as well. Are we buying Thiago this season like we were buying Chris Wood last season? Probably a little bit different, but that is a good comparison to make. It could be a one-season wonder. where he gets 20 plus Premier League goals and then sort of fades into obscurity, but never say never. Tarkowski or Anderson? If this is Joachim Anderson, I would start him. Sell Hincapié to double Arsenal defence, Gabriel and Timber, or double Saka and Rice? I'd rather double up on the defence, but I would go for Rice in the midfield as well. So if you've got Saka like me, that could be a transfer waiting to happen in a couple of weeks where you do Saka to Rice directly. But yeah, in terms of your question, double defence all day. Anderson, Richards, O'Reilly, Gabriel, Rodon, bench 2. I would bench Rodon and probably Richards. Danny says Cunha to Enzo, Gakpo or Rodgers. Enzo is definitely on radar for me, but it's going to be Rodgers. Duarte says Raya, Anderson, Richards, O'Reilly, Gabriel, Rodon, Saka, Foden, Anderson, Cunha, Wilson, Ekitike, Haaland, Thiago, Cunha to Enzo, Foden to Bruno Fernandes. Is this a good move? Yes, it is, but in terms of other midfielders you might want to consider, well, Rice is definitely one of them, but because you've got triple Arsenal, I understand why you haven't mentioned it. The others would be Antoine Semenyo, but I think what you're saying here is absolutely sound. By the way, a big shout out here to Paredes, who has gifted 10 memberships. So just going to read out the new names. So thanks, Paredes, once again. So Kevmac, Marcus, Mike Mail, Eric Garcia, Tiny Barak, Gameworld, Ashwin, Jeremy16, Chewon, and Harish enjoy the membership for an entire month. And once again, a big shout out to Paredes there. If I were you, I would recruit Timber or Rice and remove O'Reilly. Yeah, I get that. I think O'Reilly is, well, he's been quite disappointing in recent weeks, and I need to bolster my defensive line. But I'm also looking at Dalot and Klein, and I think both of them are also sellable. So yeah, my defense needs quite a bit of work. I think the forward line looks sound, and that could also result in a cash cow very soon. So after Game Week 22, selling Ekitike, and yeah, that could be my way of funding other moves and transfers. But yeah, I'll be talking about that very soon, because I did show the polls I put out on my channel recently, and let's actually play around with this a little bit in terms of the defender move. So if I were to do Nico Riley out to, let's say, Timber, a 0.7 in the bank, that's where Foden to Semenyo could work, and also going to Enzo Fernandez and possibly Declan Rice. I think that could work very well, but obviously in this case I would have triple Arsenal ready. So that's where Rodgers, I'd have enough money to buy Timber and Rodgers, and that looks very promising, actually. And then I could buy Rice for Saka in a couple of weeks' time. So that's definitely an option for me. I wouldn't rule that out. But yeah, I'll be honest. I think this week it's more likely I will sell these two, Rodgers and Cunha. And that's where I can buy Rodgers and Rice simultaneously. And there's also the option to buy Antoine Semenyo as well. So definitely a food for thought there. And I will be talking about that very soon and try to lock it in as early as possible. Hi, Dylan. Start Thiago or Wirtz? Probably Wirtz. But it's difficult to bench a player like Thiago, who's been outstanding this season with 16 Premier League goals. Start 2, Mukiele, Tarkowski, Anderson. I would bench Tarkowski. Assuming, by the way, that it's Joachim Anderson, not Elliot Anderson. Play O'Reilly or Alderete? I'll be honest, I'd start Alderete. Start Goodmanson or Anderson? Anderson. Yeah, look, as a one-week punt, Cody Gakpo, yeah, I think it makes sense, but not really longer term than that. So it's just really for Game Week 22 and that's it. Should offload Timber to bring Rice and Saka and Gabriel there? The alternative is just to sell Saka to Rice, but timing is going to be quite awkward. I'm also thinking about this myself, and you could argue before the Wolves game where Saka could be rested, but I wouldn't be surprised if Rice was as well. At least one of them, I think, will drop to the bench there, and a lot depends on their lineup against Forest and Inter Milan in the build-up to the Game Week 23 fixture. So there's a lot of food for thought, but personally, I'd rather sell Saka and double up on the Arsenal defence. But that's my current thinking. If Saka can put in some top performances and build some consistency and momentum, then I'll have a different take on it. Should I play with 4 City? I wouldn't be completely against it, but yeah, you are putting all your eggs, essentially, or most of your eggs in the Man City basket. And I do back them to win, but yeah, I'm assuming you got Foden, one of Semenyo. Well, Semenyo's going to be involved in this for sure. Haaland and Nico Riley, possibly. But yeah, I'd probably sell Foden in the long term, so that is something I'd consider. Yep, Alderete for me, as covered earlier. With Gay going to City, I'll now have 4 Man City players, including Foden, Cherki, Haaland. Who should I sell and for who? I also want to get in Semenyo ASAP. Foden for me. It's also about value. Cherki's minutes will be a bit all over the place at times, but he's also very prolific off the bench, which is very handy indeed. I have 2 free transfers, keep or sell Bowen. Keep him for now, but I'm definitely quite open-minded about selling him. Transfer out Bowen or roll, I'm going to say hold him. Sell Hincapié to double Arsenal, Gabriel and Timber, or double Saka and Rice. Yeah, double Arsenal defence, also mentioned earlier. Start Garner or Anderson, Joachim Anderson. Has Welbeck and Watkins, should I make any changes? Keep Watkins for sure, but Welbeck is arguably a sell. So, for what it's worth, I think he starts against Bournemouth, and I talked about that in my predicted lineup section earlier. But yeah, Welbeck would be out for me. Joey puts his team. 5 free transfers, but should I bother using one? Well, I always say use it and not burn it, but sometimes making no transfer is better than just making a transfer for the sake of it, which I did a couple of weeks ago. But I think there is still room for improvement here. So looking at your midfield, you've got 2 budget options essentially in Gravenberch and Xhaka. And I don't know how much money you've got in the bank, but I think Gabriel in that defensive line would look very solid. And buying one of Riff's, Pickford, Raya to replace Henderson would also be on the agenda for me. So I think there are transfers you could make this week, even though you look quite solid. You know, you can start Henderson, Timber, Cash, and then probably one of Alderete or Riley. That would form your defensive line this week. Looks fine. But I think the midfield would need a bit of work there. And I would try to buy Gabriel in that defensive line if possible. So, yeah, I would use a transfer. That would be my answer. Bruno Guimaraes for Rodgers. Thoughts? I wouldn't sell one for the other. So, not for me. Keep what you've got. Should I do Cunha to Wirtz or Bruno or O'Reilly to Gabriel? I don't have Ekitike. Long-term, Bruno's the better pick than Wirtz. For Gameweek 22, yeah, I could see the appeal of Florian Wirtz and he could do very well against Burnley, but from what you're saying here, I'm going to say O'Reilly to Gabriel. That is a massive upgrade in my opinion. Thoughts on Calvert-Lewin captain? Not for me personally, and Fulham have been in decent form, so I wouldn't expect Leeds to score that many goals or to find it easy against Fulham per se. Now, I will go through my scoreline predictions again fairly soon, but yeah, not for me. And Calvert-Lewin's form has dipped a little bit recently. Sell Keane to Alderete or just start Anderson and hold Keane for his suspension? Yeah, just start Joachim Anderson. But good alternative there. I think Alderete is also quite promising. Do you get the points if you play 4 City players? Yes, but the next time you make a transfer, you are forced to sell a City player because in the rules you can only have 3. So you won't have this sort of ineligibility or 115 charges. That's not going to happen to you, don't worry. Semenyo starting, Cunha to Gakpo, worth keeping Semenyo and Cherki. Yeah, I think Semenyo will start. Gakpo is only worth it as a 1-week punt. I think beyond that, I'd rather go for Semenyo, Rodgers, Declan Rice, Enzo Fernandez, all these midfielders I've talked about recently. Yes, it is worth keeping Semenyo and Cherki, but I think in my sort of ideal structure, I would only have 1 City midfielder, if that. Any chance of Cunha starting as a striker? Yes, but Sesko scored a brace against Burnley. I think it'll be Mbeumo on the right, Cunha left, Fernandes attacking midfield, and Sesko in the number 9 position. Hi, Wilson or Tavernier to buy this week? Tavernier is solid, but I think Wilson is the better player, or the better FPL option anyway. Hi, Dylan from the USA. Whom to bench among Foden, Bruno Guimaraes, Wilson, Rodgers, Watson, I'm guessing that's Watkins, or Thiago? Tough one. It's between Wilson and Foden for me to bench, and at the moment, I'd bench Foden. Any point in doing Raya to Verbruggen and Van Hector Gabriel? Possibly. I think Verbruggen's ceiling is higher than Raya's, and the difference between those two won't be as big as Van Hector to Gabriel. So actually, the answer to your question is yes, there is a point in doing it. It might seem sideways, but I would be on board. Now, does it have to be... Yeah, this is the thing. Do you have to go for a Brighton player in your defensive line? Not necessarily. Could you go for another goalkeeper? My preference is Roofs if you have enough money, but if not, then I understand, and Verbruggen is not too shabby. Is double Arsenal defence against Forest away something to aim for? They are second in the clean sheet odds. I think Forest could score. A lot of the recent games have been like 2-1 between Arsenal and Nottingham Forest, but yeah, it definitely is something to aim for, more so long term. Against Forest specifically, I think they could nick a goal. I've gone for 1-0 my prediction, but yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all if Forest were able to get on the score sheet. Is Neto a differential asset? Yeah, Pedro Neto's been much better this season than I thought he would be. His end product has always been a problem, especially with the goal scoring. He has improved in that regard in this campaign, but yeah, I think for Chelsea it's still going to be Palmer when fit and Enzo Fernandez as well. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is actually show you. Let's see. I don't think all the projected price rises that were supposed to happen yesterday actually ended up happening. So just going to update a few things here. And yeah, also going to have the lineups ready for you to show one more time later in the stream. Be sure to like, subscribe, all that good stuff. I have gone through hundreds of questions as well. And yeah, there's plenty more to come on the channel for UCL Fantasy and FPL. So stay tuned for that. And yeah, I've been covering every deadline for the past 6 years. I'll try to do it for UCL Fantasy on Tuesday as well. But yeah, it might be a little bit different from now on. And I will talk about that very soon. But yeah, let's see what we can do here. And I'm going to make those adjustments to the predicted lineups too. So I'll answer a few more questions in the meantime. Adamax says, hi Dylan, my midfield was Foden, Cunha, Rodgers and Gordon. 2 free transfers, took out Cunha for Rice and Foden for Semenyo. Went for Semenyo as he's not registered for UCL, so his minutes in Premier League won't be limited. Yeah, that's a great point, and people will be caught out by that. So Semenyo will not play in matchday 7 or 8 in UCL Fantasy, but he will be eligible to play in the knockout playoff rounds or the knockouts, depending on where Man City finish. So yeah, that's a very good point, and that boosts Semenyo's appeal in the short term. If I take out Hincapié for Timber, I should quite obviously start Timber instead of Lacroix. Yes, I agree with that. Yeah, I'll have a look at that, Zula. I'm not sure why that is. I've never heard this before, but I'll make a note of it. So subscribers mode only, and I have to keep refreshing to be able to type. Well, I mean, to be fair, if you aren't a subscriber, then yeah, then you won't be able to comment right now. I think that is just a setting that was set for YouTube. But yeah, it does change, but it kind of helps to moderate the chat and keep things flowing. Start Garner or Anderson? Joachim Anderson. Hi Dylan, start Cherky or Lewis Miley? Cherky. Joey says, hey Dylan, I've got Henderson, Dubravka, O'Reilly, Timber, Cash, Senesi, Alderete, Xhaka, Gravenberch. Yeah, I covered your question earlier, Joey. My answer was yes, and I gave you some ideas. By Gabriel on the defensive line, and I think the main concern would be the midfield to really bolster that, because you've got Gravenberch and Xhaka, and even though Saka and Rice are good options in their own right, I think doubling up on the Arsenal midfield is not bad. I think in isolation they're good picks, but I would maybe consider diversifying that a little bit. So Enzo, Antoine Semenyo, Bruno Fernandes, yeah, Bruno Guimaraes, they're all worth including in your midfield. Thank you, Julian. Thanks, Dylan, as ever. And here is my weekly appreciation post too. Keep up the good work. Much appreciated, Julian, and all the best for Gameweek 22. Sell Keane to Alderete or start Anderson and hold Keane for a suspension. Yeah, a lot of these I have covered, I'm not going to lie. So with this one, my advice was to hold. No worries, Geo boys. Hi, Dylan, start 2 of Thiago, Ekitike and Wirtz. I don't like benching Thiago at all. But yeah, the Burnley fixture looks very appealing. But I just don't like benching Thiago. Ekitike is a definite starter for me. But yeah, it's a tricky one. I did say Verts over Ekitike, sorry, Verts over Thiago earlier, but yeah, I don't like benching him. Only got one sub, should keep 4 City players until next week. Look, it's not completely ideal, but yeah, I think it could work this week, and I backed Man City to win in the derby, so you could do that for now, but you have to make the transfer. So next time you make a move, you're forced to sell a City player. Verts or Enzo for Cunha? Long term, it's Enzo Fernandez for me. Against Burnley, sure, Verts looks very appealing, but beyond that, I'm not that infused, really. Good luck as well, Kuka. Rice in, looks very solid to me. Play O'Reilly or Alderete, that's been mentioned a few times. Same with that one. I'll go to the new questions and make sure we have new topics and questions to cover. Should I do Cunha to Bruno Guimaraes? Yes. And yeah, with the Mane or Anderson, I'd start Joachim Anderson personally. Bruno Guimaraes or Rice? Both very solid. I've talked about them for the last couple of months, but Rice is probably my preference, and he is top for points scored amongst midfielders. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is, yeah, just update the lineups fairly quickly. And I'm just going to have a look as well and see if I can have any more information. Okay, so I haven't seen anything on Twitter yet, but let's keep our eyes peeled for that. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, if you do see anything on Twitter, be sure to let me know, drop a link, and we can go through it as well together. But yeah, right now I don't see anything particularly interesting from an FPL perspective. Okay. Okay, so the lineup should be updated now. I think that should be good. Just having another quick look at what I've gone for. But yeah, I think this would be all quite solid. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to keep that for now. Okay, so I'll go through the different graphics and screens one more time within the next 20, 30 minutes. And I'll try to lock in my team as well, if possible. So I'm going to put a poll out on the live chat. And let's see what you lot think. So 2 free transfers and 1.8 in the bank. Okay, so Cunha / Foden. Okay. Okay, so it'll be those two. Cunha and Foden. Yeah, the other option would be O'Reilly. O'Reilly and Foden. to Timber and Rodgers. Yeah, those are the sort of most likely transfers for me, but you can tell who I want in the midfield. I think one of Rodgers or Rice will definitely come in. And I'm also very tempted by Bruno Guimaraes, who I did have in my wildcard team not so long ago. But yeah, that's pretty much what it comes down to in my case. Do I use one? Do I use two free transfers? And if it's only one, is it Cunha or Foden that I sell? And I think Cunha is probably the more likely, but yeah, I look at both midfielders as sellable in the short term. So yeah. Let's now go back to your questions. Is Timber to Gabriel worth it? Yes, and I did it fairly recently myself. Does any Brighton fan know if Welbeck will play? Oh, we can see what Twisted Parky thinks. He's in the chat right now, but yeah, he's in my predicted 11. I'm not a Brighton fan though, and we'll see if he does get the nod this time round. Morning, Dylan. Start Alderete or Van Heck? Alderete. Good morning to you as well, Keith. Hi, Dylan. Do you have any differential shouts that you think are still going under the radar? Yeah, good question. It's always good to have differentials, and yeah, you don't want the game to be too boring. So I think let's do it position by position. In the defensive line, differentials. I think Frimpong would be one of them, but more of a short-term punt. Chow still has low ownership. He's more of a long-term pick and quite steady. You'll get the occasional big return, like against Everton and Burnley, but not really. Yeah, he's a bit of a funny asset, actually. So those would be the main ones, I think, in the defensive line. I think the midfield is where you could have the most joy. I mean, Enzo's ownership is just over 10%, so it's not a massive differential, but any returns he does get will lead to significant returns, so the EO is quite low. I think, yeah, in the midfield, maybe a little bit more challenging to find these proper differentials, but I think that's where the highest ceiling will be. I do like Trossard, but I'm not even sure if he starts against Forest. But he is the main starter for Arsenal on the left wing spot. So if you want a big differential, that could be one to look at. But yeah, I'm not really too happy with this list. I think I'd look at someone like Bruno Fernandes or Enzo, buying them in quite early, so to speak. Their ownerships range between 11 and 14%. So yeah, once again, not a massive differential, but still pretty decent in the grand scheme of things. Yeah, I think that would work fairly well. A lot of Liverpool players look quite interesting for this week with low ownership. Gakpo would be one. Then you're looking at Pedro Neto. Do you back Garnacho if there's 2 goals against Arsenal? I personally wouldn't go there, but he was impressive in that game. That's for sure. So those are some ideas for you. In the forward line, yeah, I think Bowen would still be one of the standout differential forwards. I think that's probably the way to go. With Visser, I think that rotation between him and Voltemada would just put me off in general. So, yeah, probably not for me. If you've got, you hold for this week and then you reassess, but I think long-term they are just worth avoiding. Dustapaki says, Roofs, Gabriel, Timber, Chow, O'Reilly, Foden, Semenyo, Rice, DCL, Haaland, Ekitike. On the bench, Dubravka, Van de Ven, Garner, Cunha. Might play Van de Ven for Chow or O'Reilly as the rival has them. Yeah, makes sense. I think I would play Van de Ven over O'Reilly anyway. In my opinion, Spurs have a better chance of a clean sheet than Man City. Long-term Thiago, Chalobah, Munoz, Bruno in for O'Reilly, Chow, Cunha, Ekitike. Might even get Enzo to counter the rival. Yeah, and you absolutely love Enzo Fernandez, as we all know. But looks pretty promising, in my opinion. And yeah, Munoz will be back fairly soon. Palace won't be the same without Mark Gay, but I think Munoz will ease the pain a little bit. He is a quality wing-back. Good transfers overall. I like every single one of them. I think with Thiago, you might even make a case for holding out for another month because Brentford's fixtures are quite poor. Would you start Miley or Lefay? I'd start Lefay out of the two. H Army says, hi Dylan, hope you're well. And how would you fund Gabriel in? Need about 1.6 million. Raya, Anderson, Mukiele, Dorgu, Tarkowski, Hall, Bruno Guimaraes, Garner, Saka, Rodgers, Foden, Haaland, Bowen, Mane. I think the simplest way to fund it is probably Saka to Rice. That's probably what I'd recommend, actually. And you could also upgrade another position. So in this case, you've got Mukiele and Dorgu. I mean, you could even upgrade Dorgu straight to Gabriel if you want to keep Tarkowski, because I'll be honest, when I looked at your defensive line, the one that immediately stood out to sell was Tarkowski to Gabriel, but I wouldn't have two budget defenders like Mukiele and Dorgu. I think I'd upgrade one of them a little bit more. But then again, Mukiele is now a similar price point to Van de Ven, but I think he'd be a good option in your defensive line too. So yeah, quite a few things to consider here. And something else you might want to think about. I mean, look, you've got Ryan Saka at the moment. But even Foden, selling him to Semenyo is another choice for you. Enzo Fernandez would be on radar. Bruno Guimaraes, you've already got, to be fair, and Rodgers. So your midfield is good, but I think Foden is the weak link based on recent performances. So yeah, Saka to Rice, maybe Foden to Semenyo, Enzo Fernandez, and then you can buy Gabriel for one of Dorgu or Tarkowski, and you've still got money in the bank to make other upgrades as well. Szoboszlai out, Bruno Guimaraes in. I'd do that after Gameweek 22 probably. I think Szoboszlai will start in an advanced position. He could also be on penalties in the absence of Mohamed Salah. So probably a keep, but yeah, Guimaraes is definitely the better FPL asset. I agree with you on that one. And facing Wolves away, I can see why you want to buy the Brazilian in, but I think Szoboszlai is probably worth keeping for one more week. Should I start Tarkowski or Alderete? Alderete for me. Yeah, fair enough, Tustapaki. No worries, Josh. Start Thiago or DCL? Still Thiago for me, but close one. Okay, so let's see. Ahmad says, captain toss-up between Bruno Guimaraes, Haaland, and Watkins for me. Yeah, they're all in my top 10. Bruno Guimaraes is 10th. I think Watkins is 7th or 8th. 7th, I think it is. And Haaland is top. Yeah, that's fair enough. I think Watkins would be the most appealing if you want to go different. That'd be the way I see it. Heated Gaming 23 says, hello Dylan, I got Raya, Gabriel, Anderson, Gay, Bruno Guimaraes, Rodgers, Vert, Semenyo, Haaland, Ekitike, Thiago, with Tarkowski, Klein, and Rio on the bench. 0 in the bank, 2 free transfers. Any advice? Yeah, for this week, I like the look of it, but Gay will not start. He's not going to play this weekend, so yeah, that's a difficult one. Nothing in the bank, 2 free transfers. You could just start Tarkowski over Gay and roll, but you would be down to the bare bones because you would have a bench, essentially, of outfield players who won't play this week. So yeah, that would be something to think about. Maybe you could sell one of Mark Gay or Tarkowski. And that's where Van de Ven, Chow could come into play. Yeah, if you want Chalobah, then you'd sell Tarkowski. So that would be my suggestion to you. Sell one of those two players and bolster your defensive line and give you one decent bench option just in case. Alderete, Mukiele. If you have no issues with money, then I'd say Mukiele, but there isn't a massive difference between them. But in terms of price tag, of course, it is 0.3 million separating the two. Joey says, is Timber to Gabriel worth it? Yes, it is. It is genuinely is worth it, and we talked about this earlier as well, and I gave you other ideas of what you could do, but the midfield would be a priority to upgrade in the coming weeks. Best keeper to go with, Dubravka long-term, Kelleher or Verbruggen? Interesting question there. I'm not a massive fan of either. I think it's probably Kelleher, to be fair. But there's not really a massive difference. Just bear in mind with Kelleher, the next 5 look really tough, and we could see Verbruggen sort of catch up to him. So, yeah, that's something worth bearing in mind. Let's take a look at the poll, and 31% of you have said Rodgers and Rice for Foden and Cunha. In second is Cunha or Foden to Rice. Very balanced poll, though, in general, because you've also got the Rodgers option as one free transfer, sharing well, now it's gone down to bottom. It's very close and evenly matched. O'Reilly and Foden to Timber and Rodgers is also, second to third. It keeps on changing between those two. But yeah, I'll be honest, the Rodgers and Rice transfers are the most likely for me. And of course, there is Bruno Guimaraes, there's Enzo Fernandez and Bruno Fernandes, a few other players to look at. But yeah, I've actually got enough money, just about enough to get Bruno Fernandes in instead of Declan Rice, which is something I'd definitely consider. So yeah, I just think with Bruno's fixtures, yeah, it does look quite tough, but this looks very promising. Something else I would look at is Saka to Rice anyway in the coming weeks, so I'm not really too against that. And that would give me enough money to buy Timber at the back. But yeah, I do like the look of this, to be fair. Yeah, it does look quite promising. In terms of timing, it might be better to get Rice now. And yeah, save Fernandes for Gameweek 24, essentially. That could also be the way to go. But yeah, interesting poll there. And I will lock in my transfers fairly soon. Okay, so yeah, this will be a simple question. Fernandes versus Rice. And could even include Bruno Guimaraes into this equation as well. But yeah, I think these are the main two. Yeah, thanks, Keith. I appreciate it. As he says, let's get the likes up to 100 plus. I will be going through the graphics as well one more time and going for some more questions, locking in my squad. And yeah, I updated a few actually over the last couple. So AP77 says Cherky benched. I'll have a look at that. Let me know what the source is, but I'm going to have a quick look myself and see if I can find that. So yeah, I'm not saying that's confirmed, by the way, but it's just a rumor that's in the live chat. And yeah, I'm going to see if I can find it, but nothing on Twitter as things stand. Yeah, nothing yet. So maybe err on the side of caution with that one. Start Collins or Anderson? Anderson. Would you sell Raya to Sanchez and O'Reilly to Gabriel for a -4? No, not for a -4. As much as I like Gabriel, probably wait another week and do it for free. Hey Dylan, should I sell Mark Gay? I probably would, yeah. In my opinion, he'll start in Gameweek 23, but it won't be the case this weekend. Collins or Ballard? Ballard this week. I like to triple up or try Arsenal triple up few game weeks, and if it doesn't work, I'll downgrade one to Rice. Yeah, I think that makes sense, and my plan is to do Saka to Rice eventually, so I can relate to that. Should I sell Cherky or start him over Casemiro? I'd start Cherky, but just bear in mind there will be some rumours flying around. I'll try to verify if he is benched or not, but yeah, of course I highlighted that message just a few minutes ago. Start both Semenyo and Cherky, or bench one for Chalobah, Miley, or Mukiele. Probably start both of them. If the Cherky benching rumours are true, then I would be open to benching him for Mukiele, actually. Captain Saka, Wilson, or Bruno Guimaraes against Haaland. Saka's the most likely for me. He is third in my list overall, but they're all good options. Bruno Guimaraes is in my top 10 as well. Timber, Gabriel, Anderson, Tarkowski, bench one. It's going to be Tarkowski. Thoughts on Gordon to Semenyo next game week? Yeah, looks good. I think that's a good time to do it. You get Wolves away this week and then Wolves at home the following week, and Semenyo should start the next couple in the Premier League. So, yeah, I'm on board with that. Thank you, Keith, for gifting a membership. Very much appreciated. So to I am BI27, enjoy the membership for an entire month. Thought on Gordon? Yeah, that's just been covered, mate. Should I bring Ekatike for Thiago or Calvert-Lewin? Um, that would only work as a 1 week punt, really. I think long-term Thiago and Calvert-Lewin offer better value. So I would, yeah, be a little bit mixed about that one. Sell Dalot and Cunha this week? If so, who are your top replacements? Already have Foden, Rodgers, and free Arsenal. Well, I think Foden is also a sell, to be fair. Free Arsenal, does that include Rice and Saka? But yeah, Rice would still be a top replacement for him, but Bruno Guimaraes would be in the equation, Bruno Fernandes and Enzo Fernandez. Those would be my sort of top picks. Antoine Semenyo as well. Yeah, I think that's pretty much the midfield I'm looking to build, getting 5 of those players that I mentioned in the defensive line to replace Dalot. I think that would be a bit trickier, but Chow, Van der Ven would be up there at a similar price point. I wouldn't even mind Michele or Alderete, depending on your structure. But yeah, they would all be under consideration. Dylan, I would bring in Rice or Timber as priority. Yeah, I get that. And Rice, by the way, is absolutely smashing this vote. 74% compared to Bruno Fernandes at 26, which is fair enough. But yeah, it's a tricky one. It really is. I think... Yeah, I think Rice or Timber, that is probably what I'm going to end up doing, but not clear-cut for me. Because then it comes down to O'Reilly versus Cunha this week, and I think United will score, but it might not even be necessarily Cunha, to be fair. Hi, Dylan, start Wilson or Thiago? Still Thiago for me, but very close. Would you do Raya to Sanchez and then Cunha to Rice? Yes. Another goalkeeper to consider is Rufs. You don't have to go for Robert Sanchez. Thank you, John Paul. Great content as usual, Dylan. Frimpong in for Keane or go for Rice / Bruno Guimaraes in for Kudus. I like Bruno Guimaraes a lot, but Rice is the preference, so that would be my recommendation. Frimpong would only work as a 1 week punt for me. I think long term his minutes will be all over the place. You're going to see some benchings, although Connor Bradley, of course, is injured for the rest of the season. Yeah, I can see the appeal of Frimpong. And if you are looking for a differential, I highlighted him earlier as well as a potential option for you. But yeah, I think long term, I'd still have my doubts about Frimpong personally. And Liverpool's fixtures are quite mixed bag over the next couple. But definitely Rice, Bruno Guimaraes for Kudus, great transfer. And I would go for Declan Rice. Bruno Guimaraes is top 10 in my top 10 list for the captaincy, but yeah, he's not going to be my favourite, obviously, but he's a good option. Should I start Thiago or Semenyo or Foden? I don't like benching any of them, but yeah, I'd start Thiago and Semenyo if I had to only bench one. Captain Saka, Wilson or Bruno Guimaraes against Haaland? Saka. Ekitike is right up there for me. He's second in the list, and only a couple of days ago he was actually top. In terms of the fixture, it's more appealing than United away for Erling Haaland, but yeah, I'm kind of backing City and Haaland to get the win, the job done, and for Haaland to get back to goal-scoring ways. Who to sell first, Bowen or Cunha? Cunha. Also, I would keep an eye on Sanchez. Liam Rosenthal might not play him in his system. Yeah, Easy mentioned that earlier. Maybe I'm overlooking it a little bit, but yeah, in terms of goalkeepers, despite Chelsea's upcoming fixtures, I do prefer Rufs at this moment in time. So if I were wildcarding, I'd probably make that change. And it would be a shame to have Dubravka away to Liverpool as my starting goalkeeper this week, but it's a possibility. I still think Sanchez will start though. Kelleher is the best goalkeeper for saving penalties. Most of his points come from his 2 penalty saves. True, and that results in bonus points, which is very important, but in terms of clean sheet output, I think both Brentford and Brighton will be quite poor. Verbruggen might have a slight edge there when it comes to clean sheets, but not by much. I have 4 free transfers. Should I bring in Gabriel, Rice, and one more of 9.6? Yes, I'm assuming that's a midfielder, right? And that's where Bruno Fernandes could come into play. Enzo, Bruno Guimaraes, Rodgers. I think that would look quite appealing. I have a mini-league rival 70 points ahead. I must absolutely finish ahead of him. He doesn't have Ekitike. How damaging might it be to captain Ekitike? Well, from an effective ownership perspective and also the Erling Haaland factor, yeah. A lot of people are still backing Haaland to score a goal or two against United. And Ekitike has been quite streaky this season. He's had purple patches, including one in December. But yeah, he has been quite underwhelming recently. He had the injury as well, of course, but it's an opportunity for you. I can see why you're highlighting this as a potential avenue for you to claw up or claw back that 70-point deficit, but I would be quite wary about maybe captaining him. Only do so if you are really confident he's going to outscore Haaland and the other players in your 50-man squad. But buying him in for this week, definitely a good option in your case, and it can really help you, yeah, close the gap to first place, which is going to be very important. Okay, so just going to bring the chat up again. YouTube is bugging out a little bit right now. So let me just get this chat up and get things working. So we are close to 100 likes. Let's be sure to do that and close in on 38k subscribers on YouTube. We are approaching that next goal, and it's all thanks to your support. And yeah, Rice is still winning the vote comprehensively, but it is a bit more balanced than it was last time out. So yeah, this chat is acting up a little bit, so just bear with me for a second, and it should be good to go. Okay. Going to go for a few more questions, then lock in my team, hopefully. And after that, I can show you the graphics one final time. Yeah, thanks to the moderators as well for keeping things rolling. Start Tavernier or Welbeck? Welbeck. There is a bigger concern, though, with his minutes. Tavernier is a definite starter, so bear that in mind. Start Hall or Mateus Mane? Probably Lewis Hall. I think Wolves could score, to be fair, but yeah, I'm going to go for the Newcastle defender. Hello, Dylan. Good morning. Thank you, Apollo's World. The same goes to you. Xhaka or Cunha this week? I'm going to say, yeah, Xhaka. Just about. Cunha's ceiling is higher. He's more likely to score, but I think Xhaka has more avenues to points. Hey, I bought in Watkins last week. Is it sensible to sell him for Thiago? I will not be selling Watkins this week. No. And once again with Thiago, probably the second best forward in the game, but in terms of the upcoming fixtures, they're quite poor. Arsenal at home. You've also got Newcastle, Villa, and Chelsea away. But I see why you're saying it. But in terms of timing, not this week. Yeah, thank you, Keith, for that membership gifted. I appreciate it. Start Thiago or Semenyo to Foden. Oh, sorry, or Foden. Yeah, Thiago for me, but I wouldn't bench both City attackers. Will O'Reilly start? Also start one? Yes, I think he will start. Tough one between him or Anderson to include in the lineup. I'm going to say probably Anderson. I think Bruno Fernandes in Gameweek 24. Yeah, same here. Against Man City, I think he could score, by the way, but then there's also the Arsenal fixture. Yeah, timing is very important as well. Are any of these sells? Chalobah, Van der Ven, Mukiele, Rogers? No? They're all holds in my opinion. Who should I buy for 9.6 million? Already have Rice. I mentioned a few options for you earlier. Semenyo is going to be one of them. Enzo Fernandez and Bruno. I think long-term Bruno is probably the best of the three. Start two of Thiago, Harry Wilson and Lefay. The first two. Do you think I should sell Foden or O'Reilly this week or wait until after Wolves? Yeah, that also crossed my mind with Phil Foden, for example. So I can definitely understand that. Yeah, I think probably wait until after Wolves then, in your case. But Foden has been very underwhelming. Best Gordon replacements from next week? Yeah, from next week onwards, I mean, Bruno Fernandes would be more of a Gameweek 24 pick, but I think he's going to be a great option. I'd rather buy Fernandes now, though, than in Gameweek 23. I think he's more likely to score against Man City, but we'll see how that ages as well. And the same goes for an assist. Morgan Rogers, Declan Rice, Bruno Guimaraes, those would be right up there, with Rice being my preference. Why do you think Chow is not a sell after this game week? Just good long-term fixtures for Newcastle, and yeah, I think they've got the second best defence in the league in terms of underlying numbers. Bench 1, O'Reilly, Michele, Welbeck. I would bench O'Reilly. Voltemada's chance of starting, probably 60-40 in his favour, maybe a bit higher than that. Not sure who to play. I have Rufs, Michele, Gabriel, Timber, Chow, Rice, Cherky, Wilson, Garner, Bruno Guimaraes, Haaland, Watkins, Thiago. Yeah, so in terms of benching, I would bench Garner. Yeah, then it becomes really difficult. Possibly Cherky, which I'm not sure about either. And I would bench one of your defenders, so either Mukiele or Chow. I'm going to say Chow on the bench. I think Wolves could score. Okay, so time to lock in my squad. If I was able to do something like this, by the way, and keep Foden, let's see if I can make this work. So O'Reilly to Timber would be the ideal one. And then Cunha to Rice. I actually have enough money to do that as well. But yeah, 4 Arsenal players, that's the problem. That's what kind of prevents me from just doing this, keeping Foden for Wolves. So yeah, it's a bit of a shame. That's where, of course, Rodgers, I'd be priced out by 0.4 million. Bruno Guimaraes I could afford, and that would look quite solid. Yeah, that looks pretty decent as well. But yeah, I'll be honest, I think it's just going to be a case of keeping it simple. I think Rodgers and Declan Rice in is going to be the way to go. Yeah, so kind of looking at how things are going right now, this is what I'm probably going to do. And I'm going to buy Rodgers in this week. Have triple City against Wolves. Although rotation against them is possible, that's the thing. And yeah, buying the likes of Rice and Fernandes will be on the agenda over the coming weeks. I think that's going to be my sort of play here. But yeah, it's definitely interesting times ahead. And unfortunately, I just can't afford Timber for O'Reilly with this move, unless I just sell Foden instead. But I don't want to keep Cunha. So yeah, very interesting. Yeah. Enzo Fernandez, Bruno Guimaraes, Bruno Fernandes. Yeah, they're all going to be in my shortlist. But yeah, Rodgers, Declan Rice. I think that's probably the best way to go. Let's see. Start Cunha or Chow? I'd lean towards Cunha here. This is the week to sell Cunha, guys, if you want to. Well, even next week against Arsenal. Just like with Bruno Fernandes, I think Cunha's more likely to return here. But it's Aston Villa, Liverpool, Brentford, Tottenham, Man City for the next 5 for Newcastle. They're not going to have one clean sheet, are they? Yeah, but it doesn't mean that Chow has to be sold. You can bench him for some of those matches. And I think out of those 5, probably 1, maybe 2 clean sheets. You're mainly looking at Brentford and Tottenham there. But yeah, I get what you're saying there. Bench O'Brien or Goodmanson? I'd bench O'Brien. Got the account name is Samuel Lockhurst. Is that for the Cherky news? I'll have a look. Sell Foden or Cunha for Rice or Bruno Fernandes? I'd rather sell Cunha, I think. At least Foden has Wolves at home in Gameweek 23. But ultimately, they're both sells in the long term. And in terms of timing, probably Rice over Fernandes. Once we approach Gameweek 24, I think Fernandes is going to be a great option as well. Foden or Voltemada, do I sell either? Probably Foden. I think Voltemada is a sell as well, but that would be more so after the Wolves game because I think Voltemada will start here. Budget forward, only have 5.1 million. Just go for Krupi Jr. You've also got Mane. I think one of those two is going to be absolutely fine. You don't need anybody else. Timber, Gabriel, Kanate, Chow, DCL, Wilson, bench 2. Currently benching DCL and Wilson. Yeah, it makes sense. There is a case of starting Calvert-Lewin over Chow, though. I would maybe suggest that. Start Wilson over Cherky? Yes. As a Chelsea fan, Sanchez probably keeping his place right now until Mike. Yeah, okay. Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, it's an interesting one. Cunha benched. A very well-known United journalist reported on Facebook the lineup of United, and he doesn't start. Okay, I appreciate that. I'll have a look at the Samuel Luckhurst news then. So, yeah, Cunha was already on the agenda to sell. This would just confirm it even more so. Okay, so let me have a look. Yeah, so I don't see it on his page, but yeah, if you have a link, be sure to drop it and we can go through it. And yeah, after going through the super chat, I'm gonna lock in my squad. At least that's the plan. Ekitike starts. Yep, at least we've got something. Yeah, Paredes, it looks like we're getting a few pieces of news, but I'm just trying to verify them. But yeah, Ekitike starts. Possibly Cunha benched. Someone did mention Cherky being benched earlier, but I'm not sure where that came from, so I would be very cautious about that. Ahmad says, playing 5-3-2 this week, Vicario, Gabriel, Hall, Chow, Van der Ven, Romero, Foden, Bruno Guimaraes, Rice, Watkins, Haaland, Sanchez, Mane, Cunha, Paqueta on the bench, trying to prep for a good bench boost. Yeah, 5-3-2 is interesting. I haven't seen many people talk about that recently. So overall looks decent, and I can see why you're doing that back five, but definitely in the coming weeks I would sell Romero. I think having two Spurs defenders isn't worth it, but Van der Ven is a good option at 4.6. You've also got double Newcastle defense, so you've got a very different structure, but yeah, I would look to change your defensive line actually. And in fact, by the way, you've got triple Spurs defense with Vicario and goals, so yeah, I would definitely be looking to change that up a little bit. And yeah, Cunha on the bench makes sense with these rumours circulating right now. I think that could play into your hands. The midfield is looking solid. Watkins and Haaland up front, also very promising. But yeah, I would definitely be looking to revamp your defensive line over the coming weeks, Ahmad. And I know you're playing a 5-3-2 this week, which looks solid on paper. But after Gameweek 22, double Newcastle and triple Spurs defence, I would definitely be trimming that down. And the priority would be selling those Spurs defenders and keeping Van der Ven. Yeah, I think Semenyo is quite clearly a keep, and this was talked about in my Transits podcast as well. Best replacement for Cunha, already have Cherky, Saka, Bruno Guimaraes. I would say one of Rice, Rodgers, and Bruno Fernandes. Just depends on your budget as well. I think overall it would be between Rice and Fernandes. Okay. Let's see. Did anyone put the link to the Cunha stuff? Yeah, I just didn't see it, to be honest, on Twitter. Hi, will you sell Cherky this week? I'd probably keep Cherky, and there's also the Wolves game coming up fairly soon, but I think with City players, you're going to get that element of rotation risk, and with their signings, especially with the Antoine Semenyo acquisition, I think it's just going to make things a bit more complicated moving forwards. Between O'Reilly and Rodon to start, it would be O'Reilly, only just though. Semenyo or Saka? For this week's Saka. Would you consider playing 10 players this week to have 5 City players against Wolves next week? No. No, I wouldn't do that. It's not a bad idea, but once again, City could rotate quite heavily against Wolves as well. They need to get results in the Champions League, and they can beat Wolves with a rotated side in 23. Start Lacroix or Chow. Lacroix always gives DEFCON, makes it difficult. Still Chow for me, but yeah, if you're backing Newcastle and Palace to concede, then it makes sense to go for the more likely to get DEFCON. So yeah, in my predictions, I think I've got Wolves to score. So it would make sense actually for you to start Lacroix. I don't really blame you for that, but if a team were to keep a clean sheet between Palace and Newcastle, I think Newcastle the more likely this week. Do you think Voltemada starts? Yes, I showed the predicted lineups earlier, and he was in it. I can't guarantee it, though. Start O'Brien or Miley? Probably Miley in this case. Zero says current starting 11, rate out of 10. For this week specifically, I'd say 8. Yeah, possibly 8.5 if you want to do that sort of thing. Start Tarkovsky or Mukiele. Mukiele. And I've been quite consistent on that. Start these Sunderland defenders over Everton. Thanks, Nuclear. I just don't know what the source is, though. I mean, you said Samuel Lockhurst, but I haven't seen it on his page. So apparently Lamens, Dallo, Maguire, Shaw, Casemiro, Mainu, Ahmad, Bruno, Dorgu, and Boomer. Yeah, so that I mean no Cunha, if that is true. But either way, I'm planning to sell him. So, okay. Yeah, I'm not sure why the chat is still bugged. Let's refresh this then. Yeah. Yeah, I think YouTube had a few issues. I had to refresh the pages, and then when I changed the chat and brought it up again, it caused that overlay problem. Would you start Thiago or Chow? Thiago, much higher ceiling. I'll go for the other question soon, but it's just time to lock in my squad here. And yeah. I think it just comes down to this, selling Foden. Or O'Reilly, but I'm probably going to stick with this at the moment. Yeah. I just can't afford Rodgers as well as Timber, unfortunately. Otherwise, I'd probably favour that first and then look to bring in Declan Rice afterwards. Just going to have another quick look at a Man City predicted lineup and then make my final decision here. So there is one predicted lineup for Man City. And yeah, O'Reilly is in it. They don't have Semenyo in there, though, which is interesting, but I think he will start. Okay. Yeah, gonna lock in this team now. So yeah, Rice and Rodgers. I think in the coming weeks, what I'm planning to do is O'Reilly to Timber and Saka to Bruno Fernandes. I think that would be the sort of play there. So yeah, I'm going to go for that. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I might... So let's just... Yeah, this is going to be a bit of color coding if you want. So Saka in there. And then, yeah. Gabriel, Anderson, O'Reilly. I think that looks all pretty good, actually. So yeah, I'm going to have Klein just ahead of Potts in case, but yeah, I don't see Klein featuring at all. So my bench looks quite weak at the moment, but yeah, the midfield is looking promising, and the long-term goal would be to double up on the Arsenal defence, so I will bring in Timber fairly soon. And yeah, I'm quite happy with that. Haaland captain, Ekitike vice. Saka would be another consideration, even Rodgers is an outside shout, but yeah, that would be my final Game Week 22 team. And yeah, I'll have the transfer section ready just in case, but I don't see myself making another move now for a hit. Okay, so we've literally only got 4 minutes left. 3 minutes at this point, so be sure to lock in your squads, have everything ready and set to go. And I'm still having a look on Twitter, but don't see anything here. So drop a like if you haven't done so already. Subscribe. We are closing in on 38k subscribers on YouTube. Hit the hype button, the notification bell, and share this stream around with those that love FPL and UCL Fantasy. There will be Matchday 7 content very soon. Best Limitless and Wildcard squads. My team selection too. Yeah. Not sure what people are saying here. Cherky has a good record against United. Yeah, I thought he would start, and I still think that. I just haven't really seen where some of these rumours are coming from. Zira says excited for the derby today. Yeah, so am I. I mean, I just hope that United can do a favour. Dylan, would you start Cherky and Foden or bring in either Tavernier, Wilson or Bruno Fernandes? I'd probably just start both of them. But yeah, in Gameweek 24, I think Foden to Fernandes is a great option for you. Top 3 captains was covered earlier, so Saka's third, Ekitike second and Haaland first. I would not take a -4 hit to sell Thiago to Ekitike. Bench Wilson or Mukiele? I'd bench Mukiele. They're probably both starts though, and I could see both of them returning. So apologies, for some reason the live chat or the maybe the internet has kind of cut out a little bit. So yeah, it's kind of acting up right now. There's not really much I can do on my end, but yeah, hopefully you can still for some more questions and comments here. But yeah, it does seem to be quite fatal. I can't even move anything on my screen right now. It's a good thing I locked in my team just before that. Yeah, Foden, Ekitike start. Yeah, no surprises there, to be honest with you. I would have been surprised if they were benched, particularly Ekitike, of course. Well, I think against Wolves, City could rotate. I mean, I couldn't tell you exactly who now because we haven't seen how they lined up today and also in the Champions League, but I think they will prioritise that game for sure. Anderson or Tarkovsky? Yeah, Joachim Anderson has covered earlier. So yeah, apologies, but yeah, the chat has kind of gone crazy at the moment. Apparently so. Nuclear Am said that it was yeah, Samuel Lockhurst who said that, and he is a reliable journalist for Man United. But yeah, either way, I think Cunha is a sell regardless. Yeah, I've seen people mention the Cherky benching rumours, but I'm not sure exactly where they came from. But if that's the case, then Rangers will probably get the nod over him, and you would expect Semenyo to start alongside Foden too. Free transfers, Dylan? Well, I only had 2, and I used both of them. And I'm going to end this poll, by the way. Quite a lot of money in the bank. I would recommend getting a better defender instead of Klein next week. Yeah, now I've got quite a lot of money, that is true, following my transfers. And yeah, that could definitely be an option for me to bolster my defensive line. And Diogo Dalot is still a sell for me too, actually. Should I start Mateta for one of Anderson, Semenyo, Foden, or Thiago? Possibly over Anderson. I think so. In my prediction, I've gone for 1-0 Sunderland, though. Do you think Arsenal need to make a statement signing, considering City's transfers of Semenyo and Gay? Well, I think it's also very important to bolster that squad depth, and Arsenal have had injury problems all season, so it definitely would help to have another option, different profile, and I think there are deficiencies, especially in the midfield, I think in terms of squad depth, and also that sort of attacker, either a winger or striker. That's why Semenyo would have been a good signing for Arsenal, and they are linked to Anthony Gordon and Summers, which I don't really get, to be honest, but there you go. DCL to Ekitike for a -4. No, not for me, but I do like the Ekitike pick in general, just not for a hit. Yeah, with Cherky starting, I mean, the deadline has passed. I couldn't really guarantee you either way. I thought he would, but people in the live chat have mentioned hearing rumours of him being benched, and I don't know what the source is, so I can't verify it myself. Saka to Rice and Foden to Bruno Guimaraes, yes. Long term, that looks very solid. Start O'Reilly or Anderson? I would say probably Anderson. I'm actually not sure if it's Enzo's birthday or not, but that's what Weiseng says, and he's a Chelsea fan. He should know. Well, you don't really have to know. Semenyo to Enzo and Keane to Tarkovsky. Also start Anderson or O'Reilly. Yeah, I think from those players... Yeah, I like both of those transfers, but Semenyo to Enzo... I wouldn't sell Semenyo. I think he's going to start in the early kickoff. Also start Anderson or O'Reilly. Yeah, I'm going to say Anderson, as I mentioned a few times. Palmer is in my... Not a guarantee, though. Okay, so, yeah, I'm going to show you FPL Challenge and also my scoreline predictions and top 10 captains and stuff one more time. But yeah, the deadline is gone at this point. So yeah, let's go to that. Scoreline predictions first. So Man United 1, Man City 2, Chelsea 1, Brentford 1, Leeds 2, Fulham 2, Liverpool 2, Burnley 0, Tottenham 2, West Ham 1, Sunderland 1, Crystal Palace 0, Nottingham Forest 0, Arsenal 1, Wolves 1, Newcastle 1. And yeah, at the moment I'm having big problems here connecting, which is very annoying. Let's see. Yeah, I'm literally controlling this computer or desktop through another laptop, and yeah, the internet is just causing all sorts of issues, so I can't even navigate the screens here. But yeah, I did go through my scoreline predictions, and yeah, you can see them one more time. I'm going to let this play out, and you can see the other graphics, the highlighted team weakness, and also player this week. And I probably jinxed him now by highlighting him, but yeah, Morgan Rogers, one of my transfers in, is a player I definitely would recommend for Gameweek 22 and beyond. We'll see if he can continue his fine form. But next up will be the clean sheet odds, and then followed by the top 10 captains. So Liverpool, Arsenal, Villa, Tottenham Hotspur, Chelsea and Newcastle complete the top 6, and Burnley are bottom. And when it comes to those top 10 captains, very close to the top, but I've gone for Haaland in number 1, Ekitike second, Saka, Palmer, Rogers, Gabriel, Watkins, Fernandes, Semenyo, and Bruno Guimaraes. It's worth noting that Palmer is yellow flagged, but yeah, that is going to be my top 10 list. And next up will be the FPL Challenge team. So Rufs, Gabriel, Rogers, Fernandes, Ekitike, and Haaland. In this game, I've gone for Ekitike captain. I'll probably stick with that, but yeah, I don't see myself making any transfers unless one of these players is benched, which I don't think will be the case. Otherwise, they wouldn't be in this bloody team. Has this ever happened that 2 Big Six clubs play early, that play last in the game week? Probably has happened at some stage, but yeah, I'd need to think of examples. Who would you bench out of Rice, Bruno Guimaraes, Foden, Rogers, Wilson if I use my free transfer to get Thiago or Ekitike in for Bowen, or should I roll and start all 5 mids? Okay, so yeah, very difficult one, but probably Foden. I think just roll in your case, but obviously the deadline has passed at this point. Thank you, Safir. I appreciate it. Likewise, Apollo's World. Thank you very much. Yeah, so yeah, your question has been covered by other viewers as well. Egypt are playing in the 3rd place playoff. So yeah, it's not going to be the case. Gakpo starts according to Lazy FPL. Thank you, Nuclear Atoms. I appreciate it. Start Mane or Anderson? I would have started Anderson. Should I hold or sell Minter? I got 7.6 for his replacement and already have Enzo, Foden, Wilson, Anderson. Yeah, go for Declan Rice. Bench Xhaka or O'Reilly? Close one, but I'd probably bench O'Reilly. Thank you, Keith. Thanks for your help as always, and good luck to you and everyone else here for this game week. Likewise to you. Good luck as well, Wei Sing. And also to H Army, we are locked in indeed. You can see my FPL Challenge team right now. Is Minter back from injury? So I think Minter won't start. I think it will be Gruder still. He is available for selection. He's not yellow flagged anymore, but no. Basically, he is back from injury. There's a chance he starts, but I've got Gruder currently at that right mid position. Someone said Foden bench too. I'm not sure where that was. That would definitely help me since I just sold him, but yeah. I captained Rogers instead of Ekitike due to the bench threat. No joke. Is it too risky or viable punt? They're both solid choices. Rogers is just nailed on for Villa. in the Premier League. He starts virtually every single game for them. I think Ekitike will start, and it looks like Lazy FPL reported that as well. And they are quite reliable when it comes to that sort of thing. But yeah, Rodgers was in my top 5 captaincy list, and Ekitike was also in that upper bracket. So I like both of them a lot. Ekitike is my preference, though. I have Haaland, but I feel captaining Bruno Guimaraes is my best option. Thoughts? Well, Bruno Guimaraes was 10th in my list. Haaland was top, but I can understand the temptation to go for something a little bit different. Let's go through some other questions here. Yeah, possibly. So for the next 10, 20 minutes, yeah, and then call it a day, especially if the internet's going to act up. Yeah, I think it's never happened before where just before the deadline it happened. Not at that exact stage with the last 2-3 minutes left, but there you go. Fair enough. Everton can be revived, says Sean. Salah not starting. He is still in Morocco for the 3rd place. Szoboszlai on pens. Yes, he will be on penalties in the absence of Salah. Ekitike would be another potential taker, but I think Szoboszlai is ahead in the pecking order. Is Cole Palmer playing? I think he will start, but it's not a guarantee. I wouldn't be that sure about it or convinced. And Chelsea could play Delap up front, Joao Pedro attacking midfield, and then Neto and Garnacho on the wings. So, yeah, I wouldn't count on it. I just woke up. Why did you change captain to Haaland instead of Ekitike? Well, that's something I did from the beginning of the stream, and it's just essentially backing City to win, and I think Haaland will get back to goal-scoring ways, but it is a close one, I think, between Haaland and Ekitike. There's not really a clear standout for the captaincy this week, but yeah, it's more a case of backing City to get the job done. I got Gakpo instead of Ekitike in challenge. Yeah, makes sense. Go for something a little bit different. I like to pick players that I don't have in my normal team, and the same goes for the captaincy as well. Twisted Parky puts his scoreline predictions, so 3-0 City, 2-1 Chelsea, 2-1 to Leeds, and 2-0 Liverpool. Spurs 1, West Ham 0, Sunderland to win by the same scoreline. Forest 0, Arsenal 2, Wolves 1, Newcastle 2, Villa 2, Everton 1, and a 2-2 draw between Brighton and Bournemouth, which I've also gone for myself. People not saying Cunha starts, or is that now saying? No source known yet. Who even knows what's happening at this point? So yeah, it definitely would be worth having a look. And the same goes for my predicted lineup, so you can see what I've currently gone for. And yeah, let's also bring up the Twitter, and yeah, I'm going to get the lineups ready for you for the Manchester Derby. So I'll let that play out in the background, and you'll see how right or wrong I am with some of them. Yeah, with the Cherky benching rumour, it's just an account called FPL Citizens who said Cherky benched. We'll see how that ends up going. So those are all my predicted lineups, and yeah, I think with Man City, of course, and Man United, we're going to find them out in literally 4 minutes, so we can compare how I did. But yeah, with the rest, only time will tell. We've also got a game on Monday night between Brighton and Bournemouth. And yeah, very shortly I will go through those lineups there. So that's all covered with the updated graphics, Palmer being yellow flagged, and all those corrections. But yeah, I'm going to leave this up on screen for now, which is going to be the scoreline predictions just for a little bit longer. And once we have the official starting 11s, that will be talked about as well. Could McAllister take pens again? That is a good shout. He is a very prolific penalty taker, as he showed at Brighton. But I still think Szoboszlai would be the main one, actually. Hey, Dylan, Happy New Year. It's been a minute, but I'm back. This Gameweek 22 went with Calvert-Lewin, Haaland, and Watkins. Hope for good results, as I don't have Ekitike. Yeah, but your full line is looking very promising, and I think Watkins in particular could be a great shout this week. Is Thiago the new Chris Wood this season? Yeah, I mentioned your comment earlier, which made this comparison. I think it's a fair one to make. We could see this sort of one-season wonder thing, but of course it's difficult to judge, and Thiago's been doing so well, and in fact he could easily better Chris Wood's record from last season and get more than 20 Premier League goals. Yeah, we'll find out about Cunha very soon. I mean, the deadline's gone anyway, and it's just worth waiting for the lineups at this point. But yeah, just to Parky says Cherky benched, so that means it would be Reinders starting then. Sofia says 3-1 City. Thoughts on Xabi Alonso leaving Madrid? Well, there have been rumours for quite a while about this, and yeah, there were rumours in December that his job was on the line anyway. But yeah, it's just a bit of a mess. I think with Madrid, you've always had a bit of player power there, and it's particularly bad at this moment in time. Xabi Alonso is a good young coach, very promising, but yeah, it's a lot of issues to fix there, and it's going to take some time. Carlo Ancelotti, of course, as good as he is, he's had his ups and downs with them as well. And I think Xabi Alonso needed time and also the full backing. It seemed to be his decision to part ways, but to get Arbeloa in, it's a very strange decision to say the least, in my opinion. Helping a friend with a move, but had to tune in, says Safir. Okay, well, I appreciate you tuning in anyway, and very nice of you to help your friend out there. Are Madrid players' power too big that legends like him not powerful enough to control the dressing room? Yeah, based on the reports that are coming out, it seems to be the case. Mbappe and Vinicius, leaders of the player power in the locker room. Well, there are a lot of reports of Vinicius and Xabi Alonso not having a good relationship, and that obviously would have played a big part, but yeah, it's not good when players lead like that, and they shouldn't be. The question is, who's tough enough to be manager of Madrid to control the players? Well, that's not to say Xabi Alonso wasn't tough enough. I just think it's a case of a lot of egos, and there's so much pressure at Madrid from the players, from the media, and also from the board. So you just got to get results, and if the results are just a little bit off, you're always at the risk of things falling apart, which happened with him. And his record, I think, was identical to Hansi Flick from the first 30 matches. So it goes to show. Ekitike's been out and not on pens, would not go against Haaland. Yes, and his underlying stats aren't particularly great. Ekitike has 12 shots on target for the season. Yeah, that isn't exactly what you want from a captaincy choice, but I was quite bullish on him early in the week. I'm not going to deny that. And he's still second in my list overall. I think it's more likely Alonso goes to Liverpool at the end of the season. But yeah, Man United now have Carrick, so we'll see how he does. But yeah, I don't think Xabi Alonso will go to United. Nice little wordplay there from Safir. Arbeloa is finished. Yes. Look, it's only one game, but that's quite a shocking cup exit there for Madrid. And surely I'll mention that in my Champions League content as well. Real Madrid's season's probably screwed. They can still win the Champions League, though. We all know that. We've seen that with Zidane when he came in. Almost 10 years ago at this point, 9 years ago. Time does fly. But yeah, I think it's quite unlikely that they win La Liga or the Champions League, but never say never with them. With the current situation happening in the USA, how risky is the World Cup being played there? But this is the thing, right? I've said this before in my previous streams. We've seen examples of, Russia, Qatar, even with Brazil. Every single country's had their own problems and negative news coverage. I think Qatar was a big example. But yeah, the USA, it's still going to go ahead. So, look, it's kind of a very volatile situation. And I saw things I didn't like from the Copa America 2 years ago almost now in 2024, and yeah, the final was an absolute disaster actually, and it was delayed for many hours. I think Alonso was tough and they didn't like it. Agreed. I will go for the lineups now, Genius Gamer. Don't you worry. 20,000 already cancelled their tickets to the World Cup. Unfortunately though, they'll probably be replaced and there will still be that sort of demand, but yeah, it's not looking promising at the moment. 15 countries that are already in the World Cup already banned to enter the USA. Is Alonso sacking good for Manchester United, or could it be Glasner? Yeah, I think Glasner could be a shout, but yeah, I still think Carrick will be at the helm for another year or so, to be honest with you. So I do have the lineups ready for Manchester United and Man City. And I've already seen something I don't like. which is absolutely amazing. Let's go through these lineups and talk about how amazing these are. So with Manchester United, Lamens, Dalot, Maguire, Martinez, Bruno Fernandes, Dorgu, Ahmad, Casemiro, Mbumo, Shaw and Mainu. So the rumours were true. Cunha is on the bench. The same goes for Benjamin Sesko. And if we look at the other side of Manchester, Donnarumma, Lewis, Kusanov, Alien, Ake, Rodri, Bernardo Silva, Semenyo, Foden, Doku and Erling Haaland. So Cherky's on the bench. The same goes for O'Reilly. And yeah, that was the bit of news I didn't like per se. I'm either getting a 1 point from him or Diogo Dalot's coming off the bench. So it's not looking good, bruv. It definitely isn't. My defensive line needs a lot of work. But at least now I've got money in the bank to make some upgrades. And yeah, over the coming weeks, I think Fernandes and Fisaka will be on the agenda. Jurriën Timber at the back will also come into play. But yeah, Nico O'Reilly has been very disappointing in recent weeks, and a lot of benchings there have certainly not helped, and that's been the main reason why he has been a frustrating FPL asset. But yeah, we've had quite a lot of major benchings already in the first game. We haven't even kicked off yet in that Manchester derby, but yeah, rotation on both sides and plenty more to come throughout the season. You look at Man City facing Wolves next, we could see key players like Foden benched there as well. And by the way, kind of an early prediction, I think Foden will score. Yeah, let's just go for that right now and see what happens. But yeah, both lineups have been covered. I also went through the top 10 captains and different graphics and stuff like that. I appreciate those that have tuned in. I do appreciate that for the last couple of hours, and hopefully you do really well in Gameweek 22. If you haven't, if you haven't done so already, bloody hell, subscribe, hit the notification bell, like the stream, all that good stuff, and also share this with people who love FPL, UCL fantasy, and all that good stuff. And yeah, check out my Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, Dylan RCM. And yeah, we can remove the Christmas hat now, unfortunately. It is, yeah, almost a month already. I mean, that is absolutely insane, right? Time does fly when you're having fun. If I had O'Reilly, I'd be selling. Well, I wanted to sell him myself, to be fair. I did want to sell him myself, but as I mentioned before, my sort of ideal scenario would have been to get Rodgers and Timber for O'Reilly and Cunha and keep Foden, but I just didn't have enough money for that. And then you'd be like, well, why not get Declan Rice? Well, unfortunately, I would have 4 Arsenal players by doing so. So it was a bit of a tricky situation, not ideal, but it is what it is. Thank you, Sophia. I will have lunch fairly soon. Thank you, Dylan. Good luck to you and everyone. Likewise, I appreciate it. Well, Ake, when I went through the lineups, it's possible that he plays left back and O'Reilly's on the bench, and that's what ended up happening. But I still thought, kind of hoping as well, that O'Reilly would start there. Cherky benched in the Carabao Cup for what? Yeah, well, it is what it is, right? He's going to get minutes off the bench, but yeah, as you can see, some big surprises there, or some of the rumours were true in the end with Cherky. O'Reilly wasn't a rumour, but it was always a possibility, and yeah, I think a lot of us are a bit frustrated from an FPL perspective. I've seen Bellingham lose his head when Vinicius keeps losing possession and they don't track back. They don't like playing together. Yeah, I mean, they did very well in Bellingham's first season, but yeah, ever since that, the chemistry's been a bit off. Not just between those two, but also amongst other players as well. Ahmad wing-back, yeah, possibly. I mean, this is the thing. United have plenty of options. We'll see how they fully line up, whether it's a back 4 or a back 3, but I think that is certainly on the agenda. Especially with IC agents and public streets, rather watching the World Cup at home. Yeah, look, it's a bit of a farce at the moment. We'll see how it all pans out, but yeah, I mean, the plan would be to cover the World Cup and fantasy in the summer. I'll keep you updated on that, but yeah, there will be a game, just like we got for the Club World Cup last summer, and I did cover the previous World Cup as well. Yeah, I'm surprised by those benchings as well, Twisted Parky. Cunha deserves it, selfish player with the most shots in the league. Yeah, sometimes he just shoots for the sake of it. He thinks he's Prime Hadji. So yeah, a lot of people frustrated with the Cherky benching. I don't really blame you. Wait for Cunha scoring after he comes on. Yeah, but to be honest, it wouldn't really bother me too much unless he got a massive haul. Foden early sub, hopefully. Hopefully. Dylan, do you think I should sell O'Reilly this week? Yeah, I think so. Especially if he starts in the Champions League, but sometimes that can't really be used as a measuring stick because, as people rightfully pointed out, Cherky was benched a couple of days ago against Newcastle, and then he's benched again. So sometimes it's not that clear. Yeah, I agree, Keith, and that will be at the top of my radar. I think Timber could come in for O'Reilly, and I only have one free transfer now, but yeah, I am looking at several moves now. Kind of a crap lineup for City, says Apollo's World. Hopefully crap enough to mean Man United get the job done, right? But I am quite hopeful when saying that. Cherky should have started more GA than games against United. But I think with Cherky, it's a bit like Trossard and a few Arsenal players that I've mentioned, like Marino. I think sometimes they're more effective off the bench, but yeah, Cherky's done really well in terms of goals and assists per minutes played. So I get that. Is Foden a sell in the long term? Yes. Cunha to come off the bench and score, says Fenerbahce. That City defence looks weak. Good luck with the game week, Dylan. Well, look, if Cunha scores and United get a win, then I'll take it, even if it means pain from an FPL perspective. Hopefully Arsenal will extend the lead, says Safir. Hopefully. It will be a tough one, but if United can get a result here, then that could definitely build some momentum there for the Gunners. I'm wondering if I should sell O'Reilly and Cunha tonight. My current answer would be yes. I mean, look, I always urge caution and not just chasing price rises and stuff. O'Reilly went down last night, actually, to 5.2. And it's probably better to wait and have more information. You've got plenty of matches tomorrow. You've got one on Monday, just in case you've got any Bournemouth or Brighton players. And, of course, plenty of Champions League action in midweek. So yeah, Zero also says the same. A few Arsenal fans in the chat, or Arsenal sympathisers, which is quite rare, because everywhere I go, I see Arsenal haters. Thank you, Baraf. See you as well. And also to Keith, good luck, and thank you. The feeling is mutual. I think Gay was a sell before Game Week 22. At this point, I'd probably hold and wait and see. But against Wolves, my sort of early prediction would be probably not starting. But that could obviously change. Yeah, Lewis starting out of nowhere. He has not featured at all. Yeah, mainly in the cups, right? And Rico Lewis is definitely not someone I'd encourage you to buy in FPL. He was quite decent for me in UCL Fantasy over the past couple of years, but I just wouldn't go there right now. Good luck as well, Safir. If I was president of any football club, players, even high profile, better respect your manager or kick them out from the squad. Yeah, I get that. And some presidents do operate that way, but maybe that's more of an old school traditional approach. Would you be looking at getting Gay? Well, yeah, he's going to join City. I would consider him once City's fixtures ease up a little bit, but that's probably going to be more so towards the end of February and going into March. I think for the next couple of game weeks, I'd probably just wait and see. And rotation is still possible, but yeah, I think Gay will start most Premier League matches until Gavardio and Ruben Diaz are back. Thank you for the super chat there to Kenya. I appreciate it. And a big up to everyone else who has been supporting the channel. Ignacio says, Grande Dylan, al final yo hice -4 Bowen por Ekitike y Cunha por Rogers. ¿Cómo lo ves? Me gusta mucho. También hice Cunha a Rogers. Y obviamente Cunha está en el banco ahora. Bowen por Ekitike, creo que vale la pena por un -4. Por lo menos para esta jornada. Después de esto, Liverpool tiene algunos partidos difíciles, pero creo que Ekitike es una buena opción. Take out Saka for Rice tonight. I'd wait a little bit. I think information is so important. We'll see how they line up against Forest today, and then also against Inter Milan in midweek. I think that would be very important to maybe see if selling Saka to Rice is actually right for Game Week 23. I might wait a little bit longer, actually. So I've got both of them in my team, but yeah, to buy Bruno Fernandes, ideally I'd do it in Game Week 24. And I think in your case, you might be looking at a similar time frame for the Saka to Rice move. As a United fan, I highly doubt we get anything from this game. Yeah, I think City will win, but hopefully we are both wrong. Arsenal have to win with the players City are getting. Yeah, well, City are making some big moves in January. And yeah, Arsenal need to also make a signing or two themselves, but I'm not really too sure about that. I want Arsenal to win because the City dominance might be back. Can see why City getting Gay, setting backs look iffy. And they look defensively vulnerable all season. I think Gay will help with that, with leadership, Premier League experience, and he's much better than most centre-backs that City have, and it also provides more squad depth, and they've got a few injuries at the back now, which came all at once, but yeah, City are building a very strong squad, and they're definitely going to be Arsenal's main challengers this season, and probably in the years to come as well. Poor Liverpool, they wanted Gay in the summer, but get cut by City. And they offered more money than City did, but circumstances have changed. Or cut the salary of the players if the players want to get out of the club, and please for them to leave. Yeah, I get that, and I don't really blame you. I think players should never have more power than the manager, and certainly not over the club. But yeah, I think the modern era is a bit different compared to how things were before. Thank you everyone for tuning in, and I wish you all the best luck for Gameweek 22 and the rest of the season. Keep your eyes peeled for more UCL Fantasy and FPL content, and Matchday 7 is up next, of course, for UCL Fantasy, and I'll be covering Gameweek 23 as well throughout the week. Take care, enjoy the football, and I'll see you very soon for more deadline streams and videos.